4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the place you're not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course on YouTube. We appreciate you joining us on this Monday, busy afternoon. We're rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Got Michael Samter, Stuart Kovacs with me. You could always hit me up, 855-212-4CBS. That's 855-212-4227, and interact with me on the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. Also on Instagram, where I'm always straight flexing, at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. So right out of the gate, let me just be clear about something. We all know there's been a lot of changes here at CBS Sports Radio. It would be kind of funny if you're tuning into the network for the first time in a little bit over the last few days and you're like, what the heck is this guy Gelb doing here? What is this bloviating jackass doing on this radio slot a little bit earlier than normal? Well, DA has left CBS Sports Radio. He's off to Sirius. We wish him nothing but the best. I'm a big fan of Damon Amendola. We've had a very good professional relationship the last few years, and I've been a contributor to DA's show, and we've hung out a bunch. So I'm a big fan of DA, and he's been at CBS Sports Radio since the inception. So nothing but good luck to Damon Amendola. But with him departing the company, Maggie and Perloff have been moved, and I'll be a good company guy here, to many of the same CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, that free Odyssey app, and the Weedos and Purple Drinkers could just listen to them earlier on YouTube as well. They'll be on Monday through Friday from 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern. So people have been asking me, Zach, what does this mean for you? We see that you're going to be on earlier. We hear that you're going to be on earlier on an interim basis until they make a permanent decision. Don't ask me when that permanent decision is going to be made. I do not know. That is upstairs with the people in the suits that make those decisions that are in management. But I've been told on an interim basis, I'm on in this time slot until told otherwise. So we'll see when they make a permanent decision. But whether you've listened to me before or this is your first time hearing me, I do thank you for joining us and taking some time out of your day on a very busy Monday. All right, enough with the housekeeping notes. Let's get right to the football because you tune into CBS Sports Radio to hear the sports talk. The last few years in the AFC, there has been three teams that have been clearly the three best teams in the AFC. The Kansas City Chiefs, we've seen them win 2 Super Bowls. The Cincinnati Bengals have emerged the last 2 years to get to a Super Bowl and then also lose in an AFC title game. And then ever since the Buffalo Bills got Sean McDermott as their head coach, we have seen the Buffalo Bills be a consistent playoff team and a consistent playoff contender. Now, entering this season, people believed in Kansas City. People still believed in Cincinnati. But the one team out of those three that took a hit and people started to question if their window was coming to a close were the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills got off to a horrible start to the season, going up against the Jets, who had Aaron Rodgers for 4 plays. You had the Achilles injury to Aaron Rodgers. This was all pre-Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, which we saw all that in the broadcast last night. But in week 1, after week 1 of the NFL season, people were saying, wow, what happened to the Bills last year in the playoffs where they got their brains just beat in and absolutely destroyed by the Cincinnati Bengals on their home turf is starting to carry over into the following season. And you saw Josh Allen was just absolutely putrid up against the Jets in that first game of the season. But since then, you looked at Buffalo and they had a blowout victory up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Then they beat the crap out of the Washington Commanders. But you look at those two teams, and I like the Commanders better than most people. The Raiders, sorry, Sue, your organization's just a dysfunctional mess, and they don't know the difference between their elbow and their you-know-what. But yesterday was a moment for the Buffalo Bills, not to get everyone back in, not to have everyone believe in the Buffalo Bills again, but to make a statement that the Buffalo Bills are not as bad or haven't lost their way as what some people made it out to be after week 1. Because you know this, each and every Monday in football season, we go to what is the flavor of the week. And through the first 3 weeks of the season, I'll raise my hand and I'll admit it, I even said before the season, I predicted the Miami Dolphins to win the AFC East. They could still win the AFC East. But really, the last week or so, everyone was all in on the Miami Dolphins. Maybe the best team in the NFL. They're the best team in the AFC. And Miami went up to Buffalo yesterday. And at first, we thought this was going to be a back-and-forth game. I even tweeted Maggie during the game when she said, fasten your seatbelts, this could be a long day. And I said, get ready to have like 8 or 9 football heart attacks in the game. Because that's what I really thought this was going to be, a high-octane offensive performance on both sides of the football field with both teams. And it ended up being the farthest thing from that, because that was a Buffalo blowout yesterday. And that was a statement delivered by the Buffalo Bills. Guys like Zach Gelb, people could get all in on the Jets, whoever the team were, it wasn't the Patriots, that people were picking heading into the AFC East to win the AFC East before the season started. You still have to go through Buffalo. And this is still Buffalo's division to lose. And they didn't just beat the Dolphins yesterday. They embarrassed the Miami Dolphins yesterday. And the biggest thing the last 3 weeks that I've seen from the Buffalo Bills is they're not asking Josh Allen. I know he's had back-to-back weeks with rushing touchdowns, but to run the ball an insane amount of time. And that's what was being asked of Josh Allen last year and even week 1. We need to live and die and put all the food on the plate of our quarterback in Josh Allen. And I said this to Brandon Beane before, the general manager of the Buffalo Bills. I've said it for months. Until the Bills commit to running the football with people other than Josh Allen, then they're not going to be able to reach their potential. And you saw it more the last 2 weeks, not really yesterday because you didn't need it. But another big part of this, too, is you look at the offseason, and the offseason was so ugly and it was so messy for the Buffalo Bills. And you got to remember that whole Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott fight that happened right at the start of mandatory minicamps. But not only were the Bills sending a message yesterday, it was also important when you look at the 3 biggest people in that organization that they were all on the same page yesterday. Sean McDermott's defense did a phenomenal job. Josh Allen played to a level that is an MVP type of a level in this league. And probably the most important, Stephon Diggs, who was not happy before the start of this season. And the Bills could tell you, it was nothing to see, not much to see here. They made that an absolute mess, and they tried to scoop up all the toothpaste back into the tube. And if you ever had to do that, it's an absolute disaster, and I just chucked the toothpaste in the garbage. But the Buffalo Bills yesterday saw Stephon Diggs dominate. And we all know when he is mentally focused and when he's healthy, Stephon Diggs looks like a top 5 receiver in this league. And you saw that yesterday with him not only dominating, but scoring 3 touchdowns, and the Buffalo Bills just sending a message to Miami that you are not there right now in order to take us down and show early on in the season that you're clearly the best team in the AFC and the best team in the AFC East. And I'll take it a step further. I was so impressed with the performance yesterday by Buffalo. You could start to make the case again for the Buffalo Bills that they are the best team in the AFC. I'm not ready to say whoever is in the number 1 spot in the AFC is right now better than Philadelphia, is right now better than the San Francisco 49ers. To me, those are the 2 best teams in football, in the 49ers and the Eagles. But we're all trying to figure out who the best team is in the AFC. And you look at the Bengals, that would have been a great pick before the start of the season. But the Cincinnati Bengals, through the first 4 weeks of the season, they've been lost. They have no identity on offense. And it's so perplexing because when you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, they have a dominant quarterback on paper. You have a dominant wide receiver in Jamar Chase, and not just one. Another guy in T. Higgins who could be a number 1 wide receiver on a lot of other teams in the NFL. And you had a defense that the last 2 years under Lou Anarumo has done a phenomenal and a sensational job. But the Cincinnati Bengals, these next 2 weeks, their season is really on life support. They have to find a way to get this to 3-3. Because if you drop one of these next 2 games, you're really screwed. And it's clear that Joe Burrow is not 100% healthy. We know he re-aggravated the calf injury that he suffered in the offseason about a month before the start of the season. But the crazy part is just the lack of chemistry for the first time that we're really seeing it between Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, who have been attached to the hip and have been synonymous with one another ever since their historically great run at LSU and what they've done their first 2 years in the NFL. But this Bengals team, like, you look at Buffalo. Week 1, they had an awful offensive performance, and they bounced back. For the Bengals to really have 3 out of their first 4 games all be awful offensively, it's not something that you just say, oh, well, they started 0-2, and then they started 0-2 last year and still found a way to get to the AFC Championship. We're past that point where you have to win the next 2 weeks. And if you don't win the next 2 weeks, then we start to have conversations about the Cincinnati Bengals missing the playoffs. And you're trying to figure out who that best team is in the AFC. I can't say right now that it's Kansas City. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the Chiefs are going to be right there, and you're never going to want to face Kansas City in the postseason because of who their quarterback is. But here's what's scary, and scary in a good way if you're a Chiefs fan. The Kansas City Chiefs on offense haven't looked like themselves yet. They haven't. And their defense, I know they weren't great yesterday, but through the first 3 weeks of the season, their defense, without Chris Jones for one of the games, did a really good job. So if you need to get your offense fixed, that's almost like a good problem to have if you're Kansas City, knowing that you have 15, you have 87, and a great offensive mind in Andy Reid. But it's kind of crazy that after 4 weeks of the season, and how last week, if I asked this question on CBS Sports Radio and said, who's the best team in the AFC, no one would say Buffalo. After what I saw yesterday, and the way that I've seen the Buffalo Bills, I don't want to say salvage because that's an extreme overreaction after week 1, but rewrite that ship into sailing in the best and the right direction. The Bills right now are the best team in the AFC, and that makes the Buffalo Bills the 3rd best team in the NFL behind the Philadelphia Eagles and behind the 49ers. And I know the Tre'Davious White injury is an unfortunate injury. They've dealt with him, unfortunately, being hurt before. But let's also remember for Buffalo, they don't even have Von Miller back yet. And Von Miller was brought in there to deliver the Bills a championship like he did in Denver and like he did in LA with the Rams. So the Bills in week 1 were horrible. They were lethargic. They were anemic. We all know that. But since then, they have shown that what they put on display in week 1 is not that team. And I get it. I'm not expecting everyone today to be all in on the Buffalo Bills. They still have to get the job done in the postseason. But you look at this AFC that we thought was going to be so great before the start of the season, no one has consistently taken control and command of this conference through the first 4 weeks. Like the Dolphins, they were about to do that. They had a big point to prove yesterday up against Buffalo. If they would have just lost by a touchdown, all right, you lose by a touchdown, you're right there with the Buffalo Bills. But they got blown out. The Ravens, I'm skeptical on them because it's tough for me to buy into that team with how many injuries that they have. The Jaguars, they didn't even put up a touchdown against the Kansas City Chiefs in week 1. So you're starting to see that the AFC looks like it's going to be, for now, a race of 3 teams. And those 3 teams are the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Dolphins. And this is going to be fun to see who's going to the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. Because all offseason long, all we talked about here on CBS Sports Radio was how much more loaded the AFC is compared to the NFC. After the first 4 weeks of the season, we've seen a lot of flaws with these teams. Like the Chargers have an idiotic coach in Brandon Staley. He's lucky to win the last 2 weeks. We'll get to them. Now, the Chiefs we know are going to be really damn good. You look at the NFC or the AFC South, I don't think there's a Super Bowl contender there. And the AFC North, the Bengals have fallen flat on their face. The Steelers, their offense is an absolute mess. The Browns can't be trusted week in and week out. And they have a great defense, but now they don't have Nick Chubb. It's like you go around and you look at it. Aaron Rodgers now out for the year with the Jets. The AFC is not as great as we thought it was 4 weeks ago. And it's shaping out to be a 3-team race right now. And we'll see who else emerges and who else you have confidence in with the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, and then also the Miami Dolphins. And I'll say this. Maybe Buffalo got embarrassed last year when everyone was on the bandwagon, and now jumping off the bandwagon was the best thing for the Bills, because I don't want to say there was complacency, but the Bills knew how good they were. And sometimes you have to stumble. Sometimes you have to fall before you reach that apex and you become that great elite Super Bowl winning team. And Buffalo, for the first time in a while, can use that motivation card and could use the doubter card. And through 4 weeks of the season right now, I have to call them the best team in the AFC. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. After 4 weeks in the NFL, who's the best team in the AFC? We'll take a break. When we come on back, two big names in the NFL that are two top 5 coaches. They just can't get out of their own way right now. They're going to make any changes. We'll get into that as the Zach Gelb Show continues right here on CBS Sports Radio. Do you ever feel like your brain is getting in its own way? Like you know what you should do, what's good for you, but you just can't do it? Therapy helps you figure out what's holding you back so you can work for yourself instead of against yourself. Sometimes it's just a matter of talking things out so you can get a better understanding of what may be standing in your way, even if that's you. You know, we've all been through some unpredictable times over the past few years, and it's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Gelb today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Gelb, GELB.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Kevin Harlan, good luck the rest of the way. We'll see how many more games we have in the NBA. And then once again, we can't wait to hear you come the fall for football.
Thank you, Zach. Always a pleasure to be on with you. I followed your career for a long time and always enjoy the times we get a chance to chat. You're nice to invite me on your program. Thank you. Congratulations on your success, and I look forward to the next time we visit.
Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports, or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions do apply. Alrighty, we will get into this conversation about Bill Belichick and Mike Tomlin in just a second, but let me take a few calls here out of the gate. 855-212-4CBS. That's 855-212-4227. Let's go to Ryan in Santa Barbara, first up on the Zach Gelb Show right here on CBS Sports Radio. Ryan, what's happening?
Zach, what's going on, my man? Welcome to the West Coast prime time for me. Hopefully the suits upstairs decide to keep you on at this time slot. I love the show. Hey, man, I just wanted to weigh in on the earlier topic. I couldn't agree more with you now. The Buffalo Bills are the number one team in the AFC. I see them beating Kansas City in the playoffs. And the Niners are definitely the best team in the NFC. And they'll beat the Eagles, your Eagles.
They're not my Eagles. Everyone confuses that. They think I'm an Eagles fan because I got into this whole tiff with Deebo Samuel because Deebo ran his mouth and wouldn't answer a few questions because I was holding him accountable. I just lived in Philadelphia. I don't dislike the Eagles. You know, I do hope the Eagles beat the crap out of your 49ers this year so I got some fun at the expense of those 49ers fans. But, geez Louise, everyone says I'm from Philly and everyone says I'm an Eagle fan. I root for the Patriots right now, who for 20 years dominated the NFL, and now we're a dysfunctional mess. So karma's catching up in the football world, right?
I love when it gets you all worked up.
It doesn't take much. You will see that right there. All right, I appreciate the phone call, Ryan. But here's the thing with Buffalo right now. Their two biggest flaws is, will Josh Allen, when the game matters the most, will he not be a turnover machine? And the other thing is, can the defense make the timely stop? We all saw Buffalo last year really lose its way in the aftermath of the Von Miller injury. Remember when Von Miller went up against the Chiefs last year, came off the edge, forced Mahomes to step up, make a mistake, rush the throw, and then Teron Johnson intercepted the football? Ever since you had Von Miller go down with that injury, they lost their way. And they lost really their leader and their missing piece to a championship. And that's what made yesterday so impressive, is they didn't have Von Miller, and they still did that to that explosive offense of the Miami Dolphins. Let's go to Largent in Texas next up on CBS Sports Radio. Largent, what's happening?
Zach, I just wanted to welcome you to the show. The Weekdays are super happy that you've got this slot, and we're excited to talk sports. And I just wanted to I elected myself to be the welcome committee, and we're super excited for this, and hope it lasts for a long time.
Well, Largent, I appreciate that. Since you're on the welcome committee, do I get like a gift basket or something?
We have it on the way. We're going to get you some Skyline chili.
Ooh, okay. I may have to give that off to the folks in the morning with Maggie Gray and Andrew Perloff, but there's nothing like when you go to a wedding or something and you check into a hotel and they give you basically what is a hangover package, is the way that I like to say it. They always give you some popcorn, they give you some Advil, they give you some water, some pretzels, and then they usually do some kind of sweet treat. Like I was at a wedding recently in Philadelphia, and they gave me a pack of Tasty Cakes. That came in very handy at about 2 a.m. in the morning when I got back from the wedding. But yes, just to be clear, this is on an interim basis. We'll see what happens with the suits and if they're going to continue to have me on in this slot. But hey, let's have the most fun with it. because you never know how long you're going to be on this earth and what the heck you're going to be doing clearly. Let's go to Nick in Texas before we get back to the conversation about Bill Belichick and also Mike Tomlin. Nick, I just wanted to make you aware, I am going to the UFC event at Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena, on November 11th. I've interacted with Nick a few times on social media, and I know he is a big fan of the UFC. So, Nick, welcome aboard. How are you?
Wow, you just said a whole bunch of stuff that I was going to say, too, and I appreciate all that. The stars finally aligned, so I'm glad that I can finally chat with you more about sports. And I do love the fact that you bring in a little bit of the fighting in UFC. I can definitely talk about that because, as you already said, I'm a big fan of that. It's one of my favorite sports. But being on the board and the committee with Larson and all the Weedos, yes, I do want to welcome you. I know it's an interim, but we do hope that this is a slot that really blows up for you because, it's the perfect time to get a bigger mass of followings. And we loved you as a fill-in for Maggie and Perloff, and so now we're glad that we can be a part of your show on a regular basis. Which brings me to my question. What do you want us to call? What should we call? The Gelbers, the Zach Attackers? What are the followers that you had at your later slot? We would love to hear that so we can, run with it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the phone call, Nick, and thank you for the kind words. So, Samter, if I got this right, and, that's one of those things where a radio host goes, if I got this right, and you know the answer to it, because I filled it on this show numerous times. I don't know the origins of it, but Maggie and Perloff's crew in the YouTube chat was called the Weedos and the Purple Drinkers. I'm clearly aware of what that means. But what are the nicknames here that people are throwing out there for me?
Well, we've seen so far the Gelbinos, the Gelbers, the Zach Attackers.
The Gelber sounds like disgusting. Yeah. Would you really want to be a Gelber? Let's be a Gelber. It seems like you haven't taken a shower in about 45 weeks or something like that.
It's been 43 weeks for me, so I'm not quite there yet. But
well, you have a little kid, so we all know that you probably don't get much sleep these days, so you probably miss some showers.
I don't think I've slept in 3 months. But the Gelb Goobers, the Gelb Grinders, the Zach Zigzags, the Gelb Bongers. I feel like the Gelb Bongers is right along with that, Weedos and Purple Drinkers. I think we're trying to keep that drug paraphernalia theme going. Zach Chat, I've heard.
Was it like Chat GPT or something?
Something like that. Well, you are basically an AI bot, so it kind of fits for all of us. So I put up a poll. Gelbinos, Gelbers, Zach Attacks, or other. And it doesn't seem like anybody likes those three names. 53% say other, and they're throwing out all these other options. 21% to Zach Attackers, 16% to Gelbers, and 11% to the Gelbinos. Do you have any thoughts?
So I'm not set on anything yet, but just when you rattle through the names, and a lot of me goes, let's leave that one off the list. Let's throw that one in the trash. Let's pull a little Rodney Harrison and basically call everyone garbage and say that take is garbage. The first thing that I came up with, maybe, just thinking about this in the moment, what about the Zach Pack? I feel like that's so easy. It rhymes. I know some people call me more Gelb than Zach, but the Zach Pack could actually be one that, for now, I don't want to. We're on an interim basis here. So I don't want to say that anything's permanent right now, but let's go to the drawing board here and be a little bit creative, is what I'll say.
That's a place to start.
It's a good start.
We build off of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like,
Rome's not built in one day.
Well, Jim Rome's been around for a while,
well, yes.
so I feel like
not Jim Rome. I'm talking about actual Rome.
Okay, well, I guess that makes a little bit more sense. It probably took longer to build Jim Rome than it did to build the actual city of Rome.
Rome is the franchise here. Rome is what keeps the lights on here at CBS Sports Radio. And I love me some Jim Rome, a tremendous human being. All righty. Let's get to two coaches who have been going at this for a long time. We know Bill Belichick is considered one of, if not the greatest football coaches of all time, and Mike Tomlin has never had a below 500 season. They're both doing things, though, right now that gives me big cause for concern. The Patriots, led by Bill Belichick the last 2 years, have been a mess. And this is not hindsight is 2020. Let me look in the rearview mirror now and tell you that I was right and slow it down and make this the easiest thing to be. The last 2 years, Bill Belichick has done a bad job with the Patriots. It made no sense to trust Joe Judge and Matt Patricia a year ago to run your offense. So this offseason, all I asked for two things. Get a legit offensive coordinator, and then also go get a number one wide receiver. Because I've said these things before, but look at Jalen Hurts. Look at Tua Tagovailoa. Look at Josh Allen, who all had questions about them. When did they take off? They took off when Jalen Hurts got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Josh Allen took off when he got Stephon Diggs. And Tua Tagovailoa took off when he got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So Bill wasted last year without surrounding Mac Jones with an actual brain at the offensive coordinator. And then heading into this year, he goes, we got Billy O'Brien, but we're not going to get you number one wide receiver. We're going to get you, bring back Kendrick Bourne. We'll sign Juju Smith-Schuster, who, give me a break. He's just shot as a legit wide receiver in the NFL. Okay, you got two solid tight ends in Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki, but they just don't have the skill power. And they don't have enough at the skill position spots. So Mac Jones was horrible yesterday. I've never said Mac Jones was going to be great, but I don't think Mac Jones is as bad as what he put on the field yesterday. But is Mac Jones even in a position to succeed? I don't think so. The line's not great in New England. You have no wide receivers, and you look around and you see them up against these other teams, and like CeeDee Lamb is a star. You know, the Dolphins, they have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And week in and week out, even when they went up against the Jets who have a bad offense, Garrett Wilson is 1,000 times better than any of the crap the Patriots have at wide receiver. And Garrett Wilson's a heck of a young wide receiver in this league. So it's amazing to me how Bill Belichick, who's been great at adapting, historically great at adapting, is still approaching the Patriots as if he has Tom Brady, where it doesn't matter who you have at wide receiver, Brady will find a way to get it done. You need to move into the year of 2023 and go get some young, talented wide receivers around your quarterback. And I don't think Mac Jones is going to work long-term in New England because they've already wasted now 2 years. And once you waste 2 years, it's very tough to get you moving back to where you should be. But look at Mac Jones at Alabama. I know he had studs at every position, but Mac Jones was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. And sure, just because you're a finalist for the Heisman Trophy does not mean that you are going to be a great NFL quarterback. We see many quarterbacks be a finalist for the Heisman or win the Heisman and then turn out to be a bust. But Bill has to get with the times here. And now for the last 2 years, he's wasted a young quarterback with horrible decisions at the offensive coordinating position to start, and then still now 2 years in a row not getting explosive wide receivers. Now, as for Mike Tomlin, I know Steelers fans sometimes, whether it was the Penguins with Mike Sullivan, who's been a phenomenal coach for them, they've called the coach into question. And I know Mike Tomlin has been called into question a bunch of times. The Steelers don't make a lot of changes, nor should they. They've been one of the best organizations in sports. You've had Noel, you've had Cowher, and then you've had Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game in a long time, but Mike Tomlin is a heck of a football coach. If you fired Mike Tomlin tomorrow, he'd be scooped up in a second. I'm not sitting here and saying Belichick and Tomlin should be fired, but they have to change their ways. And for Tomlin, every Steeler fan at the end of last season would have told you, Matt Canada is not a good offensive coordinator in this league. Every single Steeler fan, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter where your politics are at. It doesn't matter where you're from. Every Steeler fan, if you shared the love for the terrible towel, would tell you the offensive coordinator's a joke and he just stinks. And going into this year, they kept him. Okay. You get backed into a corner. Let's see if you're a hungry dog in Matt Canada and if you could run faster now. But he hasn't run any faster. And this offense has no creativity. Najee Harris had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Now he looks lost at the running back position. And I know Deontay Johnson's now out, but I think he's an overrated wide receiver. Pickens is really good. But you need to take advantage of this rookie contract with Kenny Pickett. And unfortunately, Pickett gets the knee injury yesterday. We'll see how long he's going to be out for. That's a bit ambiguous right now. But you look at the Steelers, the line isn't good enough, and the quarterback is also not receiving the best coaching. And sure, eventually franchise quarterbacks have to fight through that. But how many times do we look back at young quarterbacks and we go, up, that young quarterback was ruined by the organization? And I don't know what the ceiling is for Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett, but right now with two great coaches in Bill Belichick and Mike Tomlin, they're not being put in a great position to succeed. Belichick wasted last year with Mac Jones. He's wasting this year with Mac Jones. I know you finally get the good offensive coordinator in there and Billy O'Brien, but you got nothing at wide receiver. And for Matt Canada to still be the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, it's an absolute disgrace, and he shouldn't be calling the plays there, and he should not be the OC in the Steel City. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on CBS Sports Radio. It is a Monday, and as we do this every Monday and Friday on the Zach Gelb Show, we do 5 questions, 5 answers. We call it Onsides, Offsides. We'll get to that next. But first up, standing by with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Sports Flash.
Zach, week 4 concludes with the Seahawks and Giants. In the Monday night matchup, Seattle comes in after back-to-back wins and will get a boost from the return of safety Jamal Adams, who returns after missing more than a year with a torn quad suffered in the 2022 season opener.
It's been hard, man. Love the game like no other. You know, when you lose something, you know, that you really, really love, it takes a toll on you. So obviously mentally, had to get over that. I had to adjust. And, you know, that was just life.
Giants left tackle Andrew Thomas will miss his third straight game with a hamstring injury. Saquon Barkley is doubtful with a sprained ankle. Desmond Ridder remains the Falcons' starting quarterback, according to Arthur Smith. Jonathan Taylor set to return from the PUP list. He'll practice this week. Iowa quarterback Cade McNamara will miss the rest of the season with a knee injury. The New York Mets have named former Brewers executive David Stearns their new president, and James Harden skipped Sixers Media Day today after a contentious summer with the organization. In a sad note, former Patriots and 49ers tight end Russ Francis died in a plane crash. He was 70. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Looking for CBS Sports Radio online? Your favorite hosts and the best sports content and entertainment are available 24/7 on social media and YouTube, and in the palm of your hand with the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
Deion Dawkins from the Buffalo Bills. Appreciate you doing this. Thanks so much.
Thank you, brother. You my dog, and for life. We've been rocking since the Temple days, and this just shows that you never know what life is going to bring. Like, we would have never known, Zach, that this is where we would, end up, and I'm nothing but happy and blessed to call you my brother, and I'm happy for you, bro. You keep going, all right?
Here's Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, it's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show when I might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Alrighty, we do this segment every Monday and Friday right here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. 5 questions, 5 answers. Let's get to a little onsides, offsides. I almost said hot take Hickey hit it. That was muscle memory. The great Stuart Kovacs hit it.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb on CBS Sports Radio.
All right, Samter, what do you got for me today?
All right, this is our first ever onside, offside together. We had a huge debate before the show. Is it onsides, offsides, onside, offside? Which is plural, which is singular? Who knows? It's all the same, and it's lovely.
Just get me a good drink and then also pay for the bill, and I don't care what the heck you call it there, Samter, all right?
Hey, next event that we go to, drinks are on me. So after being selected second overall in the 2021 draft, my former quarterback, Zach Wilson.
He still is your quarterback.
No, let's go Chiefs. Has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL for the Jets. However, last night, Wilson kind of outplayed Patrick Mahomes, completing 72% of his passes for 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks, while finally looking comfortable in the pocket. So onside or offside, Zach Wilson's career can still be salvaged.
Salvage in New York? Is that the question?
No, his career can be salvaged. He can be a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL.
I will go offside on this one, and here's why. Zach Wilson, after one game, is now being talked about so much more differently than he has been through the last 2 years or so. Zach Wilson is not a good quarterback. Zach Wilson had leadership issues, but he is athletic. And he made some of the throws that we all thought he was capable of at BYU when he was getting to the NFL. And sometimes you got to grow up. I like the way that Zach Wilson put the game on him last night. He would not have done that a year ago and didn't do that a year ago. But I do think once you get embarrassed to the way that Zach Wilson has been embarrassed, it's very, very tough to bounce back. And I don't think long-term he's going to work here with the Jets. Let's see him play well for like 2 or 3 more weeks. Remember, last week everyone was saying, go trade for Kirk Cousins. And then also Aaron Rodgers is coming back next year. I know he says he wants to come back this year. I don't really buy that, but he is coming back next year. So then he's going to be somewhere else, Zach Wilson. And I have a tough time buying stock in him off of one game, even though he did play this remarkable game. So I go offsides.
Offside.
Number 2.
Well, speaking of number 2 overall picks at quarterback, after losing the first 2 games of the season, the Houston Texans have won 2 straight to even their record at 2-2. Rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud is lighting it up, passing for over 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns in those 4 games, and most importantly, has yet to turn the ball over. So onside, offside, C.J. Stroud will be a legitimate NFL starting quarterback.
I'm going to say onsides, and I was very critical of C.J. Stroud last year because with all the talent that he had at Ohio State, I thought we could have seen a better version of C.J. Stroud. And when I met him, because I am a Heisman Trophy voter, when I met him in New York City at the Heisman pre-media availability right before they hand out the trophy, I said to him, I know you haven't made your decision yet, but if I was an NFL GM, you tell me why you're deserving of being the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And clearly he did go 2. And something that he stressed to me is that he believes he's more mobile than what people give him credit for. And he was looking forward to putting that mobility on display very soon. And he did that in that great semifinal game up against Georgia where they lost as that kick was no good right as midnight did strike and we welcomed in the new year of 2023. But here's what's been so impressive so far. You said it, the decision-making, not turning over the football, and also finding a way to win right now with less. Nico Collins has turned out to be a pretty damn good wide receiver. But Nico Collins didn't take off until C.J. Stroud got there. So C.J. Stroud is putting others in a better position to succeed, and that's a big, big, big thing for a young quarterback to do, and it shows a sign that he's going to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. C.J. Stroud has really impressed me through the first 4 weeks of the year. C.J. Stroud will be a legitimate NFL starting quarterback onside. All right, number 3, what do we got?
All right, well, sticking with the quarterback position, the Washington Huskies moved up to number 7 in the country after a 31-24 win over Arizona, thanks to 23-year-old, 6th-year senior quarterback Michael Penix Jr.
I feel like everyone's either a 5th or 6th-year senior
It's
now.
unbelievable. He's been around. I feel like I was like 12 when he first started in his career.
Everyone right now is the Perry Ellis of their school, if you want to use a basketball term, into the NFL with how everything is now just all out of order because of the COVID year where everyone got a free extra year and this transfer portal stuff.
Well, the question is Michael Penix Jr. going bald like Perry Ellis did. On the season, Penix is now completing 75% of his passes for 2,000 yards, 16 touchdowns to just 2 picks, and he now sits 2nd behind Kalen Williams in the Heisman odds. So onside, offside, Michael Penix Jr. will win the Heisman this year.
So right now I would say onsides, and the reason I will say onsides is because I believe the Washington Huskies are the best team in the Pac-12. I do not think it's USC, and even before I would say USC, I would go with Oregon because Oregon plays defense, Washington plays defense. Bo Nix has been phenomenal ever since transferring over from Auburn, and Michael Penix has done a flawless job ever since coming over from Indiana. But I look at Caleb Williams, I think everything is going to have to go right for Caleb Williams, where you look at like a Mahomes or you look at a LeBron or a Tom Brady. When their careers moved on, they had to be perfect. And Caleb Williams is having a great season individually. But I do think winning the Pac-12 will have to happen for Caleb Williams in order for him to win another Heisman Trophy. And I don't think Caleb Williams this year is going to win the Pac-12 because of his defense. So I look at Michael Penix Jr., his stats have been incredible, and I do trust the Kalen DeBoer-led Washington football team to win the Pac-12 this year, and what's going to be a fight to the end, and it's going to be incredible to watch. But if you ask me right now, will Michael Penix win the Heisman Trophy? Yeah, I'll go on sides for that right now. Number 4, what do we got?
The Texas Longhorns improved to 5-0 with a 40-14 drubbing of number 24 Kansas, thanks to 325 yards from Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with this game, by the way.
Well,
I was in Lincoln. I was in Lincoln this weekend.
Oh, yeah?
And I picked Texas to win the Big 12 before the season started. So I was at Lincoln, and I had a parlay cooking. And the first leg of the parlay hit because I took Kentucky minus 2.5. I forget what the third leg was, but it hit as well. So I was looking for that middle part, and that middle part was Kansas plus 17. And at halftime, it was looking great. And then I looked down at my phone after Michigan was blowing out the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and I go, holy smokes, what the heck happened to Kansas up against Texas? So I wanted to go a little horns down when talking about the Texas Longhorns.
That's a penalty. That's a flag right there in the Big 12. That's a flag.
But
I'm throwing the little yellow flag out there for you.
Sark and boys did a little horns up this weekend in a big way and said, screw you, Zach Gelb.
Well, maybe that was due to 218 yards on the ground from Jonathan Brooks as well with Ewers and his passing game. Well, the Horns are heading to the SEC, as we know, next season, and Arch Manning is waiting in the wings. The hopes are high in Austin. So, onside, offside. Texas will win an SEC title in their first 5 years in the conference.
Man. Even with Alabama taking a little step back, you're still going up against Alabama.
I mean, they beat Alabama this year, and they should have beaten them last year had Ewers not gotten hurt.
You're not wrong on that. And you had that dopey tweet from Drew Brees at halftime. I always still say, go Tigers, when talking about LSU. But now you have the family man in Brian Kelly. Georgia's not going anywhere, even though they got to start playing better. But you know what? I'm going to be a sucker here. And I'm going to buy into Arch Manning that he's all that. Wow. And I'm looking for a good story. So, yeah, why not? As Lee Corso would say, bleep it. I'm going with the Longhorns. Look at this. I started horns down to start this segment. Now we're going horns up. Texas won an SEC title in their first 5 years of the conference. Why not? It's early in the year. Things are going great in October. Onsides.
All right, last one. With all eyes on football, the NBA kicked off media days around the league today. This offseason, as we know, the Bucks added Dame Lillard, while the Celtics just traded for Drew Holiday. However, Heat star Jimmy Butler is still confident about their chances.
Like I always say, I know what I'm capable of. I know what my guys are capable of. So we'll continue to play basketball as a unit, as a team. Somehow, some way, end up in the finals. This time we're going to win it.
This time we're going to win it, he said. Onside, offside, the Heat are the best team in the East.
So you and I don't have the hair to do this, but the new hairdo that Jimmy Butler had today.
He calls it the emo look.
I think Stuart Kovacs, if he grows out that hair a little bit more, that perm a little bit more, he could go the Jimmy Butler haircut. Stu, would you be willing to participate?
Oh, I don't know about willing. I could do it.
I think your girlfriend would like it.
I don't.
Sexy Stu.
I don't think she would like it.
Coming to a theater near you. But you asked me, are the Heat the best team in the East? Absolutely not. This is the easiest offside I've ever had to do right here.
Offside.
And here's why. The Milwaukee Bucks. You got Bucks Lust? They just got Damian Lillard with Giannis Antetokounmpo. And then the Boston Celtics just got Drew Holiday. I know Kristaps Porzingis is a walking injury, but you do have Jason Tatum and also Jaylen Brown. Those two teams are definitely better with the additions they've made this offseason than the Miami Heat. All righty. Hour number 1 in the books. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a break, and then when we do come on back, I have to yell a little bit. You know, I could get really loud. I have not reached the level of yelling yet. I feel like a storm is brewing right now, though, because Brandon Staley is insufferable, and there's another NFL head coach who I really like, who I thought made a boneheaded decision yesterday. Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio. We'll talk about those two decisions next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, how we doing? Good Monday afternoon to you. Zach Gelb here with you. It is the Zach Gelb Show, but where else? CBS Sports Radio. You can also get us on YouTube, the free Odyssey app, SiriusXM Channel 158, and always give me a follow on Instagram and Twitter at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. If you're a big foodie, I posted a nice photo of a tomahawk steak that I had this weekend at this beautiful place, Casa Bovina, which is in Lincoln, Nebraska, on the trip that I made to Lincoln, Nebraska this past weekend. So you could check that out. And I have a new love in life, actually. I never knew what a runza was. Never heard of it. The Uber driver did a terrible job explaining. They're like, oh, it's beef and cabbage. But I had a runza this weekend in Lincoln, Nebraska, and it was absolutely delicious. So some good sports, some good food. You could always find me on social media at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB.
You can't talk about a Runza and not explain better what it is, because now my mouth is watering and I don't know why.
So I was in an Uber, and the Uber driver, a nice lady named Lori, goes, you got to try a Runza. And I go, okay, what's a Runza? And she's like, it's cabbage wrapped in beef. So I thought it was like cabbage, like just holding a thing of cabbage with beef in it. But it ended up being, I guess the best way to say it, it's kind of like a tortilla and like a burrito. And then inside there's cabbage, there's meat. I think there's some cheese in it too. Maybe some onions. Like, I had no clue what was actually in this thing. But when I tasted it, the best way that I could describe it was it kind of tasted like a Philly cheesesteak, which I absolutely loved.
I looked up Runza, and I'm like, looking at it, it looks just like a Philly cheesesteak, except it called
in a wrap.
A dough bread pocket. It's like a hot pocket and a cheesesteak mixed together.
And Lincoln, Nebraska is so cool, where the football team we know for a while has been bad. Every single week, though, there's 90,000 people at that stadium. They put up some sign like 300 straight sellouts or something like that. It was incredible. And the scene before the game is awesome. Barstool was there. I'm standing there watching the show. The next thing you see Big Ev and Taylor Lewan and Will Compton standing right there. And I'm standing in the back room, my Temple hat and some sunglasses. And I look kind of creepy, I thought, in some of the shots, but I was just enjoying the show. But every single person there was so kind. They could tell that you're from out of town. And they go, go get a beer or go here, go there. But it was just phenomenal. Just people, and it was a great time in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I can't wait till that football team returns to glory and go back to a game there. So it was a really neat trip. I did have some travel problems, though. You just can't fly in this country anymore. LaGuardia canceled my flight Friday morning. I was supposed to go to Kansas City. I ended up, a friend of mine who was on the trip, last second found a flight to Des Moines, Iowa. So on Friday afternoon, we flew to Des Moines, Iowa. That flight was on time. Then we drove from Iowa to Lincoln, went out to this place called Misty's on Friday night, which was, you had the Nebraska band come in. It was really cool. Then Saturday, we wake up, we go to the stadium, pregame festivities, all that. And then at night, we went to this phenomenal steakhouse. Like, it was just tremendous, great food, great beef, all that stuff. You want to know who's in the steakhouse? This is the most random celebrity sighting in an athlete that I think, if you would have told me I would have met this person on the trip, I would have never believed it. It is a former NFL running back. And I'm sitting at the table, may have had a few old fashions, and my friends go, I think that's so-and-so. And I go, it looks like it's so-and-so, but why the bleep would so-and-so be in Lincoln, Nebraska? It ended up being Todd Gurley was there. Now,
so random.
Yeah. So I went up to Todd and I said, Todd. And he goes, yeah. I go, we just wanted to make sure it was you. We thought it was you. And I said to Todd Gurley, with all due respect, what the bleep are you doing here? We've been trying to figure it out throughout this entire meal. So one of Todd's really good friends and former teammates is a strength and conditioning coach at Nebraska. They were teammates together at Georgia, so that is why he was there. But what a phenomenal dude. Like, we were sitting there, we were probably talking to him for 20 minutes, just a really good down-to-earth guy. So that was the trip at Lincoln, Nebraska. Ended up going to Kansas City yesterday in order to get on the plane home back to New York. And, did you go to Kansas City with the Samter for the draft, or was that a Stu trip?
That was a Stu trip.
I went back to our spot Jack Stack, Stu.
All right. That place is great.
Patio weather, football Sunday, multiple TVs. We got the Pitmaster, which was burnt ends, the Fire Kiss wings, the ribs, the brisket, the cheesy corn, the baked beans. And, I've been watching my weight recently. I've lost a bunch of weight the last 3-4 years, but I felt like a fat pig after walking out there. For dinner last night, all I had was a protein bar on the plane. I was like, I can't eat another meal. So really good trip to Lincoln, Nebraska. Anyway, I got to get to a few things here from the football yesterday. There are two coaching decisions that even when you make a decision, it could still result in a win when you probably should not get the win, is the way that I'll say that. And I saw a decision made yesterday from Brandon Staley, which I'm kind of numb to, and I'm not surprised that Brandon Staley did this, but back-to-back weeks, Brandon Staley continues to show that he just doesn't get it. And you could save me, your analytical rant, and you could tell me what the numbers say. It makes no sense 2 weeks ago up against the Vikings, and that was in a 4-point game, when he elected to go for it on 4th and 1 at his own 24-yard line. And he got bailed out by Kirk Cousins, who threw an interception because the Vikings can't get out of their own way. So then this week, with a little under 4 minutes to go against Stu's Raiders, it is 4th and 1 at the 34. Now, you would think that last week you went for it, you got lucky to escape with the victory, you would adapt, you would learn, you would change. But no, not Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley goes for it on 4th and 1, and then you had one bad coaching decision, which should have backfired and resulted in him, maybe not losing the game, but at worst case, the game going to overtime or it being tied up. And then Josh McDaniels gets a first down all the way down to the 3. You have Josh Jacobs, who last year had the most rushing yards in the NFL, and on 1st and goal from the 3, they throw the ball, Aiden O'Connell gets intercepted, turn out the lights, the fat lady singing, and the party's over. It is amazing to me how Brandon Staley the last 2 weeks got bailed out by Kirk Cousins, Kevin O'Connell, Aiden O'Connell, and Josh McDaniels. Brandon Staley should just genuflect and should just bow down to the 4 of those people, because that's the only reason, those 4 people and their incompetence, why you won the last 2 weeks. Because Brandon Staley, if you didn't get lucky, and sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good, right? My uncle has lectured me that all the time. Sometimes in sports, you'd rather just be lucky than good. But Brandon Staley's got to be the luckiest person on the planet. He should have lost both those games. And he got bailed out because of quarterbacks that just aren't clutch or not ready for the moment. And I want to say I couldn't believe it, but this is what Brandon Staley does. And that's the one thing. I guess you could say at least he's consistent, right? He's going to be loyal and true to himself, but he will eventually get fired. I don't care that he's won the last 2 games. I know this team going into the bye is all banged up and, right, their season has not capsized yet. But the Chargers this year in an AFC that's open, right? We talked about it in the open. The Bengals are extremely vulnerable. Their season's on life support. The Chiefs' offense hasn't hummed yet. The Bills, dominant yesterday. The Dolphins did take a step back, but they're still going to be in the mix. We'll see at the end of the year where the Ravens and the Jaguars are at. But this AFC is open. This AFC is for the taking. And you look at the talent that the Chargers have, it's just inconceivable to me. And I know the Spanos family is cheap, that week in and week out, they look at this coach and they go, oh, this is boy wonder. Oh, this is the genius of Brandon Staley. To make the same decision in back-to-back weeks and get bailed out, it's almost as if the NFL is scripted. And I know that's been a big joke. Oh, the NFL is scripted, blah, 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 blah. But it was so infuriating the last 2 weeks. And I'm almost at a point where I can't even yell about it anymore. Like, all the emotions in my body just go, what the heck does this guy continue to do? And why is he so frustrating? And why does he just not get it? And the worst thing is you get all these people, all these nerds that tweet me, oh, you clearly don't get the numbers, blah, 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 blah. Let me be clear. I'm not anti-analytics, but I don't live and die by the numbers. I've watched football long enough. I know when you're up by more than a field goal and you're in the final 4 or 5 minutes of the game and you're not going up against Tom Brady, you're not going up against Peyton Manning, you're not going up against Patrick Mahomes, who you know are going to march down the field, you were going up against Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell. All right? Or Aiden O'Connell. Whatever O'Connell it is. Who cares? No one even knows the name of the quarterback. And you going up against those 2 guys with the lead by 4 points and 7 points. And you basically said, here's a gift. Christmas came early. Here's a gift. Go score a touchdown. And both those guys were like little babies, like, wah, I don't like the gift. I want something else. It's amazing how they won the last 2 weeks. So let me ask this to you, Stu, before I get to Ron Rivera. You have to be so upset. And there's many reasons to be upset because you're a Raiders fan. And my condolences. Your team's just a dumpster fire.
Yeah, they're awful.
It's actually insulting to dumpster fires to call them a dumpster fire of the Raiders.
This is true. Very true.
But your team is just going nowhere. kind of think McDaniels is going to be back next year because they had to pay Gruden all that money. And Mark Davis is going to say, oh, let's give him another year. Ziegler's there. Now Brady is going to be a minority owner. I don't think that's official yet, but it's in the works. Brady's a McDaniels guy. So you're probably going to see another year, even though it makes no sense, of Josh McDaniels. But you get a gift, an absolute gift, where they go for it, 4th and 1 at the Chargers' own 34-yard line. You're only down by 7 in the game, and you should have got a touchdown. And I think it was on 4th down and 10 the play before. You get the first down, tumbling, as Kevin Kugler would say, down to the 3. And the first play by Josh McDaniels, we go from Staley, who's just a dope, to McDaniels, who's also a dope. And we go to the 3-yard line. You have Josh Jacobs, who I don't understand why all of a sudden Josh McDaniels just hates Josh Jacobs, and you don't hand the ball off to the guy that led the league in rushing last year? Your thoughts there?
Makes no sense. The whole season so far, they have not figured out how to use Josh Jacobs, which is crazy because they relied on him so much last year and used him so much, and he got so many yards, and now they're at the one. This is like the 3rd or 4th time this year that they're at near the end zone or have a short yardage play, and they don't give it to Jacobs. I just don't understand it.
And I hate to say it, but you know what this feels like? Because McDaniels comes from the Belichick school. And once you get in the doghouse of Bill Belichick, it's very tough to get out of it. Here's why all of the Belichick disciples have failed, because they all think they're Bill and they all try to do things like Bill, but they don't have the resume. They don't have the clout like Bill Belichick. And now it's a different world that we live in. And also, sports have become more player-friendly, which there's some good in that and there's also some bad in that. But it's almost as if Josh McDaniels, and I hope this isn't the case, but this is just the way that I feel. It's almost as if Josh McDaniels is using the contract situation against Josh Jacobs, and they're trying to send a point where McDaniels doesn't really value the individual running back, the bell cow back, because in New England, it was running back by committee. They just turned in 2-3 backs each and every year, and they kept on winning. But just like Belichick isn't able to win right now without Tom Brady, McDaniels also has to realize you don't have Tom Brady. And when you're starting a rookie quarterback and you have Aiden O'Connell and you're down to the 3-yard line and you have a bell cow back, which is a dying breed in Josh Jacobs, you got to give him the ball. And McDaniels should know this better than anybody because he coached in a Super Bowl where Darrell Bevell and Pete Carroll said, oh, it's 2nd and goal right at the 1. Yeah, we're going to bypass Marshawn Lynch and we're going to throw the ball with Russell Wilson. It's maddening and infuriating, and I'd be sick to my stomach if I was you.
And to your point, he's done the same thing, too, with Hunter Renfrow this year, too, through the first 3 games.
I don't think Hunter Renfro's great, but he's solid. He's good. Renfrow has been in the dog. I wanted to put his face on a milk carton. I haven't even seen Hunter Renfrow.
Through 3 games, I believe they threw to him 3 times, and they threw to him a couple times yesterday, so they actually started using him a little bit. But, yeah, not to use the guys that are kind of like the playmakers on a team, it's very strange.
And the other coaching decision I didn't like yesterday was Ron Rivera. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Ron Rivera. The last year, though, Ron Rivera has done some things when talking to the media that just doesn't make sense, like the whole Carson Wentz situation right before the start of the year, the way that he gave too much when talking about Eric Bieniemy, who's looked like a fantastic offensive coordinator once again. If he doesn't get a head coaching job out of this year, with what he's been able to do so far with the Commanders away from Mahomes, that just continues to be mystifying to me. But you're in a game against a better team. And I know the Commanders beat the Eagles once last year. But with how back and forth that game is, and I'm not always someone that says if you go win the game on one play, you have to always go for it. Like, look what I just said the last 5 minutes about Brandon Staley. But for Ron Rivera, when you're on the road in Philadelphia and you know Philadelphia is the more talented team and you score a touchdown as the clock expired, where I thought they were gifted a second or two. I was surprised that they were able to get another playoff. But Jahan Dotson catches that football. I thought for sure when I was watching the game in the airport yesterday that no doubt about it, Rivera's going to go for 2. And maybe that's just being an older coach. And if you were a younger coach, you would have been more aggressive and you would have gone for it. But with how much better the Eagles are than you, and I know he said afterwards, oh, our offense was gassed, our offense was tired. That's kind of a tough sell for me. And maybe you just didn't have a great feel on your team in that spot. You know, I would love to hear from maybe some of the players more after the game. Did they feel like they were tired? Because I don't think players would admit that, but maybe I'm wrong, and maybe some players did. But I thought they should have gone for it right there and go win the game. And then the game gets into overtime, and you have the 54-yard game-winning kick by Jake Elliott. So those are really three coaches that I didn't like yesterday. Ron Rivera, I thought, should have gone for it when he could have won the game and go for two. Brandon Staley continues to be the luckiest coach in the world because he should have lost these last two games. And Josh McDaniels, keep it simple, stupid. It is that simple. You don't have your quarterback. I'm not even saying Jimmy G is this great quarterback. I think Jimmy G is overrated. But you don't have your quarterback. You have other great playmakers, and you take the ball out of the hands of Josh Jacobs there at the 3-yard line, and you go, yeah, I'm going to trust Aiden O'Connell, and you bailed out Brandon Staley. What's something that annoyed you yesterday in the NFL? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We will take a break. When we come on back, we'll have to update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We call this segment the Newsbrief, and we'll come on back. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, news brief time right here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Let's start it off with Patrick Mahomes winning the football game despite not playing his best game.
It was definitely a fight. We came out hot, obviously struggled. I made two just bad throws where I was trying to lay it over a linebacker and a safety, and I just didn't throw it far enough and hit the dude right in the chest. Stuff that you can't do. But I was proud of how the guys fought. I mean, obviously the defense kept us in it. And then the offense had 2 drives in the fourth quarter where we had sustained drives, and that's a good defense. So I'm proud of that, but obviously a lot to learn from and a lot to correct.
Yeah, I had the Chiefs last night laying the 8.5 points. I was not a winner in a bad gambling weekend that it was for yours truly. But when it was 17-0, I thought this was going to be another massacre at MetLife Stadium, and that was the farthest thing from the truth. And that Jets defense really, ever since that safety, after a horrible start where Pacheco runs for 45 yards for a score, they did step up in a big way. But here's the positive for Kansas City. Clearly you won the game. Mahomes gets the first down. At the end of the game, slides down at the 2. I wanted to get 2 more yards and get in the end zone so we could cover the spread, but whatever, it's not the end of the world. Kansas City's offense has not clicked yet, and that's a scary thing for the rest of the league because 15 is eventually going to figure it out, and we saw it at times last year. Oh, they're missing Tyreek Hill. They ended up winning a Super Bowl. It just once again shows you, even when almost everything goes right for the Jets, you get a great second-half performance by the defense. Zach Wilson plays a really good football game and the best football game that I've seen him play in a long time. Kansas City still wins the game. And if you have a chance to knock out Mahomes, you got to do so. And the Jets got close. The Jets looked like they were taking control of the game, but they were never really able to do that last night on Sunday Night Football. Let's go to Derek Carr. He says his shoulder is not an excuse for the Saints' performance up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as the Bucs got a big victory against the New Orleans Saints.
I don't think anyone's 100% after week 1, or week 1 of training camp, So that's no excuse for us playing the way that we did today. And, we got to be better, and we will be better.
I have a very tough time with Derek Carr because there's a lot of moments where he comes off as a very likable guy, and I admire him playing through pain yesterday. I did not think he was going to play, but always whenever I hear Derek Carr speak, he does take accountability, but he always just sounds so sad, and it's like the woe is me thing. And this guy is not a top 10 quarterback in the league. You could say he's top 15, but anytime he looks like he's about to be a top 10 quarterback and he's just moving into that conversation, he takes 2 or 3 steps back. And if they don't win the division this year, with him being on paper the best quarterback in the division and the most talented team in the division, it's going to be an awful look. But heading into the season, I had very little confidence, and it was Eric Eager who works for Sumer Sports. He said to me before the start of the year, anytime Derek Carr is a quarterback in a division, I will never pick that team to win the division. And I kind of followed suit with that, and I went with Atlanta. But I've been impressed with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, I know they lost to Philadelphia. They didn't have a good showing, but that defense is really good, and Baker has a nice connection with Mike Evans, who did leave the game with an injury yesterday. Here is Jamar Chase. I have not loved the approach of Jamar Chase this season. I thought it was I don't want to say stupid with what he did going up against the Cleveland Browns, but you had to back it up. This is Jamar Chase after the game about him not getting the ball.
I'm open. I'm always open. Excuse my profanity. I'm sorry.
I'm shocked. We're now 4 games into the season. I know Burrow's not 100%, but you know the connection and the synergy those two have. How Jamar Chase doesn't have a touchdown. I know he dropped one. I think it was up against the Ravens, maybe? I forget who it was, but he dropped one in the right end zone on a fade route. But to not get in the end zone through 4 games of the season, that's tough to believe. And you look at the Bengals right now, their season, they're in sports hospice, is what I like to say right now. Where, unfortunately, a lot of us had to go visit loved ones in hospice. And it's a very scary sight. And 9 times out of 10, you're not walking out of hospice. Right now, they're in sports hospice, where no one would have thought that before the start of the season. But they're 1-3. And these next 2 weeks, they have to win, because if they don't get this back to 3-3, it's going to be a tough time to buy back into the Cincinnati Bengals for this year. Let's go to Matt Eberflus, the head coach of the Chicago Bears. The Bears. It looked like they were going to blow out the Broncos yesterday and add on to the embarrassment of Sean Payton. But Matt Eberflus, we all remember that Saturday Night Live skit with the Bears fans. The Bears. As the Bears fan basically has a heart attack, gave their fans just an unfortunate showing in the second half yesterday. Here's Matt Eberflus on the Bears collapse.
We're all very disappointed in this hard-fought battle that we had today in the outcome. But I certainly can see things moving in the right direction for our football team. And, again, there's a lot of good things out there that we can build upon.
I know Justin Fields finally played well, but how are the Bears moving in the right direction? Bueller. Coach, you're probably going to get fired after this year. There's a good chance you have the number 1 and number 2 picks in the draft, because the Panthers think as well, and at least you have their first overall pick next year, or their first round pick. But man, with what you see from this team, I thought yesterday was more so an indictment on the Broncos in the first half than it was praising the Bears. The Bears stink, and even when you thought things were maybe going right, you ended up not winning the game. What a horrible showing yesterday by the Chicago Bears in the second half. Here's Tua Tagovailoa on the Dolphins' blowout loss to the Buffalo Bills.
You lose in a manner like this, and it's very humbling, and it's for some it's much needed. The message from Mike was don't blink. There's a lot of football left. Continue to look at the guy next to you. Continue to trust him. Continue to keep playing, and remember what you play for.
No one wants to lose a football game, clearly. Like, you don't need a PhD in football to understand that. But sometimes when you lose a game early in the season, it may not be the worst thing for your team. And maybe the timing of that loss to the Miami Dolphins will go on to help them. Because the last 3 years, last 3 games, they played the Bills really well. Remember, they beat Buffalo in Miami, and then the 2 times they went to Buffalo last year, they were both close games. And the 3rd time, they were going with Skylar Thompson as their quarterback. But through the first 3 weeks of the season, I'm guilty as charged on this one. I was saying Miami's the best team in the AFC. Right now, Miami's going to win the AFC. So I said that before the start of the season. And people turned against Buffalo after week 1. And now people are now brought back in by the Buffalo Bills. And they're going to jump off Miami very quickly. But everyone was feeling Miami the last 3 weeks. Now they get embarrassed by the Bills. Let's just remind you, they do play Buffalo at least one more time this year, and it is going to be in Miami. So maybe this is that humbling loss like Tua is talking about, where it refocuses this team. And I know it's an outdated term, but like, they've been reading their newspaper clippings too much. But you get the point on that. Maybe this humbles them, and you start to see the version of the Dolphins that we kind of got the first 3 weeks more throughout the rest of the season. Let's go to Brandon Staley, who may be the most obnoxious coach right now in football because he just does idiotic things week in and week out. This is Brandon Staley once again on why he did elect to go for it. 4th and 1, this time up by 7 at his own 34-yard line. Here's the coach of the Chargers.
Yeah, it was just less than a yard in that range where we just felt like we had the right play. Felt like, we would really force them to, they had a timeout in the 2-minute, but it would really put us in good position to finish the game. And put them in a really tough situation. We felt like our defense was playing at a high level, and we didn't get the job done.
So if you thought your defense was playing at a high level, why wouldn't you punt the ball and give them more field when you're up by 7? instead of getting bailed out in back-to-back weeks by Kirk Cousins and then Aiden O'Connell because they get right down to the red zone because you basically gave them the ball in the red zone or very close to it, and then both those quarterbacks threw interceptions. If I was in that press conference room, I'd raise my hand. I'd be like, Coach Zach Gelb, CBS Sports Radio. The great coaches adapt. The great coaches learn from their mistakes. Are you ever going to adapt and learn, or are you just going to do the same nonsense week in and week out? Here is Deion Sanders. It looked like we were getting another Colorado blowout going up against USC, and then that became a great game. USC did prevail 48-41, but here is Coach Prime on his son, Shedeur Sanders, as the quarterback of the Colorado Buffaloes.
If we would have got that ball last, we were going to go down and score. We knew that. We know that. Everybody in here knows that. His teammates knew that, and that's just what he brings to the table. He's unflappable, and he's very wise and understanding on the whys and the because in what he sees out there on the field.
I'm a big fan of Shedeur Sanders. I've always been a big fan of Coach Prime as well with Deion Sanders. Last year, I wanted him to get the Auburn job. I thought he should have got a big-time job right away, and that obviously wasn't the case where he lands in Colorado. But if they would have got blown out 2 weeks in a row, I don't want to say a lot of people would have jumped off the bandwagon, but the way that we did view Colorado for the rest of the season would have been different. People forget they only won one game last year, and they overhauled 80% of the roster. So they're going to get to a bowl game. They're going to do a heck of a job this season. But to show that fight in the second half and make it 48-41, I'm not about moral victories, but that was a really good showing in the second half, and it calms down people that are ready to stomp on the grave of Colorado, which is just so ridiculous if you're rooting against them, barring the fact that maybe you are a fan of a team in the Pac-12. Let's hear Kirby Smart. Now, this is Georgia against two opponents that we view legit struggling. They struggled against South Carolina, and they struggled up against Auburn this past weekend. Brock Bowers had the big touchdown towards the end of the game. Kirby Smart on a close game versus Auburn.
When you turn the ball over and you give people extra possessions, you just can't do that. Good football teams don't do that, and good football teams don't let people run the ball on you for 200 yards. That's one of the things that we knew they could do well. Thought they really ran the ball well, and they used the quarterback and rushed the ball on us. We can't do that, and we got to be able to run the ball better too. But proud of the way the guys fought.
Georgia's very comparable to the Kansas City Chiefs, where the Chiefs were last year. We all know the championship that the Chiefs did win. We've seen Georgia now win back-to-back championships. But last year, people were saying the Chiefs are vulnerable. And look what happened. Kansas City ended up winning the Super Bowl. This year, people are now saying Georgia's vulnerable in showings up against Auburn and also a few weeks prior up against South Carolina. So there's one thing to say that the team is vulnerable. There's another thing to put the nail in the coffin. And we'll be able to see if teams will be able to put the nail in the coffin on this team this year and prevent them until a 14 playoff, where I think they'll get in. I think they'll still win the SEC, but prevent them from, in the college football playoff, winning 2 games and becoming national champions again. Because there's many times people wrote off Kansas City last year or say Kansas City's not going to get to the Super Bowl, it's going to be somebody else. And right now, a lot of similar things are being said about Georgia. So until Georgia goes down, there is cause for concern. I'm not going to be the one that picks against them. And finally, Notre Dame, last week, it was a game they should have won up against the Ohio State. And then at the end of the game, that team just crumbled and dropped an interception that would have sealed the victory. Only had 10 players on the field in the final play of the game when you did have the game-winning touchdown for Ohio State. I was really curious how Notre Dame would bounce back this week, and I expected a sloppy game because maybe their minds were still in the performance last week, and you're going up against a very good Duke team. And Notre Dame, led by Sam Hartman, pulled it out right at the end of the game. Marcus Freeman did admit, though, after the game, there were a lot of mistakes despite the win.
Sometimes the feeling of victory sometimes can make you say, all right, yeah, we know we should have did something different. But we continue to have to attack everything we do and figure out why we weren't as successful as we wanted to be.
And we'll see how Notre Dame's going to be the rest of the way. They have a really good team with Audric Estime. I like Sam Hartman a lot. Their defense is good. And it seems the next big statement Notre Dame can make in terms of, all right, maybe you want to get Notre Dame into the college football playoff. They can't lose another game this year. Some people say they may need to be undefeated, but when you look at the rest of their schedule, sure, nice job with Louisville coming up this week. Louisville's been better with Jeff Brom there than anyone could have expected. They're ranked 25th in the country, but in 2 weeks from now, they play USC. That's a big, big, big statement to see how much this Notre Dame team did learn from the Ohio State game. All righty, that's a news brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on CBS Sports Radio, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let me go to Phil in Pennsylvania real quickly here. You're next up with Zach Gelb. Phil, what's happening?
Hey, Zach. I'm upset with Sirianni or the offensive coordinator or whoever. Eagles had the ball with like a minute 50 left to go in the game on the 28-yard line. Jake Elliott is about automatic as it comes. They should have just drained the clock, kicked a field goal, and not even give Washington the opportunity. They're already, shorthanded in the secondary. You need to keep that defense off the field, whenever possible. All you had to do was drain the clock, kick a field goal. Eagles go home happy without all the extra drama at the end.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it's a fair point, Phil, that you did bring up. I'm someone that I don't change my take after seeing what did happen when it comes to criticizing coaches. In the moment when a buddy said, oh, maybe you should have waited for the field goal because it was 2nd and 4 at Washington's 28 where they throw the ball to A.J. Brown for the touchdown. I was like, I have no problem taking the touchdown there. The Eagles do have a good defense, even though the defense isn't off to the best of start this season. I'm not going to crush Sirianni for that, but I did hear a lot of Eagles fans yesterday suggest, hey, with how automatic Jake Elliott is, maybe you run the ball, run down the clock, and then you kick the game-winning field goal right as the time does expire. Now, I understand he made a 54-yard field goal. Usually when you kind of get selective like that, even if there's some thought to that, that would be the one where he misses like the chip shot from like 43 yards or something like that. So in the moment, I was not crushing Sirianni for that, so it would be disingenuous of me today to say, yeah, this coach is an idiot, this coach is a moron, this coach is a dope. What the heck was he doing? But if you felt like that way in the moment, you definitely have a fair gripe there. All righty, Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio. What we'll do right now is we will take a break. And when we do come back, I want to get into this conversation and continue the conversation about college football. I'm going to give you 3 takes in the college football world from what I saw this past weekend. But first up with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the Seahawks visit the Giants to close out Week 4, MetLife Stadium, the site of the biggest win in franchise history, where they won their only Super Bowl. Now they come in off back-to-back wins. The Giants will be without left tackle Andrew Thomas, which Pete Carroll said should be a plus to a pass rush that has been improving.
We're covering guys a little bit better. We're getting better, we're getting tighter, and just the efficiency of our games, which means the guys working together. And it's not just we're running this stunt; it's they're running the stunt in this manner, and they have a sense and a feel for one another. We're just growing together. It takes time, and we're still working on it.
Saquon Barkley also doubtful for the Giants, while the Bills' Tre'Davious White done for the season with a torn Achilles. The Colts' Jonathan Taylor could play this weekend. He's set to come off the PUP list and return to practice this week. Falcons head coach Arthur Smith said Desmond Ridder remains the team's starting quarterback, and Iowa will be without quarterback Cade McNamara for the rest of the season due to a knee injury. The Brewers' Brandon Woodruff will miss at least the wild card round with a shoulder injury, and the New York Mets introduced their new president, former Brewers executive David Stearns, who returns to his native New York to take over the team. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Looking for CBS Sports Radio online, Maggie? Your favorite hosts and the best sports content and entertainment are available 24/7 on social media and YouTube.
And in the palm of your hand, pearl off with the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
Caleb Williams, a longtime quarterback coach, Tom House, just said you're the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. When you hear a statement like that, how do you react to it?
It's pretty cool, I'd say, just because everybody watches Patrick and sees all the cool things he can do. And I always said, even in high school, that I don't think there's anything, obviously it's special, but I don't think there's anything that I can't do that he's doing out there.
Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. So during the break, I guess Samter was trying to get my attention. And then eventually I looked up because I have a good internal play clock on when we're coming back from the break. And I see Samter was like jumping up and down, saying, look at me, to try to get my attention. I just didn't have my headphones in, so I couldn't hear him. And it's pretty soundproof here in the CBS Sports Radio studios. I went down the rabbit hole of analyzing Matt Canada's Wikipedia page after another horrible performance by the Pittsburgh Steelers. The position for Matt Canada right now on Wikipedia is worst offensive coordinator of all time. and it's in red bolded letters. It also says career highlights and awards in this section. Calls shotgun runs on 4th and 1 and gets the QB injured. They are just torching the Steeler fans, Matt Canada. And I can't blame them, because when the offense isn't up to par, there's always going to be someone who needs to be the piñata, and it's not going to be the young quarterback first. It's going to be the offensive coordinator, and everyone in the Steel City can agree that Matt Canada is not the guy. But, man, I got a good chuckle out of worst offensive coordinator of all time and then calls shotgun on 4th and 1 and gets the QB injured. Here's what I'll say to Steelers fans. It could be Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia could be your offensive coordinator. That's the worst offensive coordinator of all time.
Well, here's the question I have for you, right? If everyone can see it, right? Lay fans, analysts, people who watch the sport, if we can see how bad he is, how can't Mike Tomlin see it?
So there's loyalty when you are a coach to your staff. And I think that you always try to, especially when you're someone who's Mike Tomlin, who is such a successful coach, and you're in an organization that's basically had 3 coaches in Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. And I think you try to be loyal to your own staff until you realize that it definitely can't work. And sometimes coaches get stubborn. You saw it right with Bill Belichick. Everyone knew last year that Matt Patricia shouldn't have been the offensive coordinator, but Patricia was Bill's guy. And I know that Matt Canada hasn't been in the organization forever, but he's been there since 2020, and I think Tomlin wants this to work. But right now, you're doing it, and you're eventually going to have the fan base who right now is using Canada as the piñata they're eventually going to turn on you as well. I don't have a great explanation for you, but that's the only thing that I could do, that it's just blind loyalty here by Mike Tomlin right now. And we see that, unfortunately, with football coaches. So let me just do this real quickly before we get to 3 college football takes. Stu, I want you to play this real quickly. It's Mike Tomlin after the game, who was asked, are the Pittsburgh Steelers going to make changes? Let's listen up and see if maybe some changes are coming, especially with the guys that call the plays and run the offense.
Hell yeah, we got to make some changes, man. That was an ugly product we put out there today, and so we're not going to do the same things and hope for a different outcome. What those changes are, man, we'll put together a plan in preparation this week.
Yeah, if I was a Steeler fan, that gave me nothing. Because it was, and I'm not expecting a coach to go gaslight the team after a game and things like that, but you didn't give anything specific. Sure, you lose a game, you get embarrassed the way that they did up against the Texans. It's easy to say, yeah, we're going to make changes. We got to do things differently. But everyone knows that the change that the fans want, and sometimes, if you listen with the fans, you're going to end up being with the fans one day. But it's not as if the fans are always wrong. And I just don't see how Matt Canada, where it was so ugly a year ago, bounces back and finds a good story here, and you have a good happy ending with him running the organization on the offensive side of the ball for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All righty, let me give you 3 college football takes. I try to do this each and every Monday off a very busy college football Saturday from things that I got to see this past weekend. Let me start with USC. I just do not trust USC's defense. It's the reason why before the year I picked Washington to win the Pac-12. I think Oregon is a better team than USC as well, and we'll get to understand, where this USC defense is at. I couldn't really gather anything going up against Nevada and going up against Stanford. They didn't have a good defensive showing up against Arizona State. It looked like they were going to have a good defensive showing up against Colorado, but then the Buffaloes just had an enormous second half. That defense cost them last year, in addition to an injury with Caleb Williams. But you got some big opponents coming up for USC. You have Notre Dame, you have Utah, you have Washington, you have Oregon, and Washington and Oregon back-to-back weeks on November 4th and November 11th. If you get caught one time, it doesn't mean you can't win the Pac-12, because you only have one loss in the Pac-12. I know the Pac-12 has been sensational this year, but all these teams are going to beat up on one another eventually. You could still get into the Pac-12 championship game. But when you go up against the better competition, and when you go up against the better teams in the Pac-12, which you're in that conversation, I do think your defense is going to be a major wart and a major flaw, and it's what is going to prevent you, in my opinion, from winning the Pac-12, where I will trust more Washington and I will trust more Oregon. But you look at this USC defense, we talk about coaches showing too much loyalty. Lincoln Riley showing too much loyalty to his defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch, ever since they were together at Oklahoma. So that's take number one. I don't trust the USC defense. Take number two, Mark Stoops is a top 10 coach in college football. And Mark Stoops continues to be one of the more underrated coaches in the country. Mark Stoops is 5-0 this season at Kentucky. Mark Stoops has been at Kentucky since 2013. This was a program that has not won 10 games since 1977. Mark Stoops, since taking over as the football coach at Kentucky, has won 10 games twice, 2018 and 2021. Mark Stoops is an incredible football coach, and you could tell he has an enormous amount of power at that university. Because do you remember last year when John Calipari said, we're a basketball school? The football coach at Kentucky usually doesn't have a leg to stand on when you're going up against a basketball coach. But John Calipari had to issue an apology. So it shows you the incredible job that Mark Stoops has done with this program. And it's more than just wins and losses. But he took over a football team that was 2-10 back in 2012. He goes 2-10 in 2013, then goes 5-7, 5-7, 7-6, 7-6, 10-3, 8-5, 5-6 to COVID year, throw it out the window, 10-3, 7-6, now is 5-0, and didn't just beat Florida this weekend. He beat Florida going away 33-14. So Mark Stoops, top 10 coach in college football and one of the more underrated coaches in the country. And I would think he would eventually leave Kentucky, but he hasn't done so yet. And with the power that he has at that university, maybe he's just a little bit different than most of the other coaches, and maybe he does not leave the Kentucky Wildcats. And finally, there is no more disappointing team this year through the first 4 or 5 weeks of the college football season than the LSU Tigers. A lot of people had high expectations for LSU entering this season. I didn't think they would win the SEC, but I thought they'd be one of the 4 teams in the college football playoff. We've seen before 2 SEC teams get in. We've seen before 2 Big Ten teams get in. But LSU, week 1 of the season, didn't show up in the second half against Florida State. They lost 45-24. And then you got into a shootout with Ole Miss, and you lose to Ole Miss 55-49. LSU is just not going to be able to do it this year. LSU is regressing, and it's crazy because they lost game 1 last year and then lost in the SEC championship game. And there's big expectations with a lot of talent with this LSU Tigers team. And Brian Kelly, he's going to start to feel the pressure. Because remember, Les Miles won a championship there. Ed Orgeron won a championship there. I know Nick Saban did, but look what Nick Saban has gone on to accomplish. But we are at a point now where, and I know it's different circumstances, where if the fan base lost faith in Ed Orgeron and Les Miles, and Brian Kelly's perceived to be a better coach than both those guys, they'll lose faith in you rather quickly. And to have 2 losses 5 weeks into the season and be 3-2, it's a bad look for LSU, and LSU has been the most disappointing team in college football to start off this season. Coming on back with No Huddle Offense, so this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Touchdowns, sacks, upsets, and last-minute heroics. Another NFL Sunday is in the books, and we've got you covered with the biggest plays and sound bites from another wild week in the National Football League. It's time for No Huddle Offense on the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, we start off across the pond. Jaguars and Falcons. Jaguars beat up on the Falcons pretty good, 23-7. Bijan Robinson for the Falcons, though, did have 14 carries for 105 yards, also had 5 catches for 32 yards. But the story in this one was Josh Allen of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had 3 sacks in the game, 2 tackles for loss, and 3 quarterback hits. He now has 6 sacks on the season. Also had a 3-sack performance against the Colts back in week 1. Trevor Lawrence, 23 of 30, 207 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, 42 yards rushing. And if you do a little anytime touchdown gambling, maybe you should have gambled on Calvin Ridley. I don't know if the league would love me to say that, pun intended. But he did get in the end zone for a touchdown against his old team. Let's hear that Trevor Lawrence 31-yard strike to Calvin Ridley on the Jaguars Radio Network.
Pressure coming from his right. Steps up, avoids the blitz, throws deep down the field. Open man in the end zone. It's caught. It's Calvin Ridley. Touchdown, Jaguars. 31 yards. And Ridley has done it against his former team in London.
Our next stop, we'll go to Orchard Park, a big AFC East heavyweight showdown between the Bills and the Dolphins. The Bills destroy the Dolphins. They squished the Fish by a final score of 48-20. Josh Allen, 21-25 for 320 yards and 4 touchdowns in the game. He also had 6 catches for 120 yards. That's Stephon Diggs. Not 1, not 2, but 3 receiving touchdowns in this one. Let me give you a little stat here from Ari Mirov of My Sports Update. Josh Allen is the second player in NFL history to have at least 300 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns, and also 1 rushing touchdown, and a perfect 158.3 passer rating in the game. And that's joining Aaron Rodgers, who was the other quarterback that did that in Week 7 of 2019. Let's hear the Josh Allen 13-yard strike to Stephon Diggs. This was the 3rd touchdown of the day for Diggs.
Diggs by himself on the left side. Here's the snap. Takes the handoff to Murray. Throws in the end zone. It's a trifecta for Stephon Diggs. A 13-yard touchdown reception. Can you dig it?
Tua Tagovailoa, 25-35 for 282 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Devon Achane, who last week had 4 touchdowns, did get 2 touchdowns this week, 8 carries for 101 yards. But the story, Buffalo destroying the Dolphins 48-20. Let's go Vikings and Panthers. Panthers got off to a good start, but then the second half they had an ugly finish. Vikings get in the win column for the first time this year, taking care of Carolina 21-13. Justin Jefferson do the gritty 2 times, 6 catches for 85 yards and those 2 scores. Kirk Cousins only 139 yards in this one, had 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And let's hear that Kirk Cousins strike to Justin Jefferson. This made it 21-13 at the end of the 3rd quarter.
Takes the snap, fires to the end zone to Jefferson. Touchdown! They singled JJ and they paid.
And then Bryce Young back as the starter for the Panthers after missing last week with an injury. 204 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Broncos and Bears. What a seesaw ride this was. It saw the Bears have a 28-7 lead, and then the Broncos won the game with 24 unanswered points. Let's hear the Jonathan Cooper 35-yard fumble return for a touchdown. This tied it up at 28, courtesy of the Broncos Radio Network.
Play fake for Fields. He's going to be hit. The ball's not free. It bounces around. Jonathan Cooper scoops it up. And here we go. 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Denver. Yes, sir. Nick Bonito caused the fumble. And Jonathan Cooper with the Broncos' first defensive touchdown of the year.
Nick Bonito in the game had 2.5 sacks and did force that fumble. Russell Wilson got the win, 21-28, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Justin Fields, everything was going great until that interception, was 28 of 35 for 335 yards, 4 touchdowns. But that interception, unfortunately, I don't want to say it's what did the Bears in, but it was a big reason why they lost the game. Many things you can look back to when you blow a 28-7 lead. Next stop, Ravens and Browns. Ravens win 28-3. Dorian Thompson-Robinson in for the injured quarterback in Deshaun Watson. He goes for 121 yards and not 1, not 2, but 3 interceptions. But Lamar Jackson, he was cooking, and he was cooking twice to Mark Andrews. Let's hear the 18-yard strike from Lamar to Mark Andrews. This made it 28-3, which ended up being the final score.
Jackson takes the snap, steps up, throws it complete. Andrews has it at the 10. 5, touchdown Ravens! And with 5:56 left to play in Cleveland, the hay's in the barn.
That was Jerry Sandusky, Jerry with a G, on the Ravens Radio Network. Here was a big surprise. And I know the Steelers aren't as good as the way that some people talked them up before the start of the season, but the Texans, they have direction here. Where you have DeMeco Ryans, you have C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson Jr. The Texans were acquiring picks the last few years. They did strike this offseason and finally hired a coach that they actually believe in, and now it's starting to pay off. The Texans win 30-6. C.J. Stroud is making people around him better. He did find Nico Collins for his 2nd touchdown of the day. This was a 52-yard strike. This made it 30-6. Let's listen up to Texans Radio.
CJ gets the snap. CJ throwing downfield and caught by Nico. 25-20. Breaks a tackle. 15, 10, 5. Rock and roll. Touchdown, Houston. CJ Stroud with more 3rd down magic to the end zone.
Only 16 completions for C.J. Stroud in the game. 308 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and both of those were to Nico Collins who had 7 receptions for $168. The big note here, Kenny Pickett, though, only 114 yards in the game, had an interception. He did leave the game with a knee injury, so we'll see what that means for next week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bucs at the Saints. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are looking pretty damn good. They win 26-9. Baker Mayfield, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Also had 31 yards on the ground. Derek Carr dealing with the injury, 127 yards, did not find the end zone. And Jameis Winston was 0-1 for an interception. Very fitting. But let's listen up to Baker Mayfield, finding Devin Tompkins to make it 23-9.
Dropping Baker Mayfield, looking to his left, now back to his right, looking over the middle, nowhere to throw, flushed out of the pocket, throws toward the end zone. It's a diving catch right at the goal line. It's going to be a touchdown, Tampa Bay. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. And Devin Tompkins has the catch right at the goal line.
I love Gene Deckerhoff. I know this game wasn't in Tampa, but I love when he says, fire the cannons, fire the cannons, fire the cannons. All right, Bengals at the Titans. Tennessee. Man, Derrick Henry is back. The Bengals offense, not so much. Derrick Henry, 22 carries, 121 yards. He had a rushing touchdown where he ran right through the entire defense for Cincinnati and also threw a touchdown. Let's listen up to that 29-yard run for one Derrick Henry. This made it 17-3.
Going to give Henry a chance on the left side. Here he goes, the big man. To the 25, to the 20, to the 15, to the 10, to the 5, to the end zone. Ladies and gentlemen, the King! Touchdown, Titans!
The King is back. Joe Burrow, though, not back. 165 yards. Didn't find the end zone, and that's 0 touchdowns in 3 out of his first 4 games this year for the Bengals. Whew. Rough start for Cincinnati, and they are sitting at 1-3. Rams and Colts. This was another seesaw ride of a game. Rams are up 23-0. Then it's an overtime, 23-23. And Matthew Stafford, maybe the best story of the NFL season so far, found Puka Nacua. That's the best story of the season so far. On a 22-yard game-winning touchdown to win it in overtime. Rams 29, Colts 23.
Stafford ready, calls for the snap. Here comes the rush. He throws right side alone. It's Puka at the 5 to the end zone. A walk-off winner. Puka Nacua in overtime. 22 yards to get the Rams to 2-2.
That's 9 catches in the game for 163 yards for Puka Nacua, which could be my favorite name of all time. And he also had that receiving touchdown. On the year, he leads the NFL in catches with 39 and is second in yards with 501. Anthony Richardson has been a bright spot for the Colts, and they need one in the worst way. They're going to get, or expected to get, Jonathan Taylor back this week. He's expected to be at practice on Wednesday. Richardson, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 56 yards rushing, had a rushing touchdown. And we know he missed last week, but he's the first QB ever with a rushing touchdown in each of his first 3 games in the NFL. Alrighty, next stop, we go to Philadelphia, South Philadelphia, Eagles and Commanders. Eagles survive in overtime 34-31. You're going to hear Sam Howell on a touchdown right as the time expired in regulation to Jahan Dotson. Ron Rivera, I thought he should have gone for 2. He did not. The game goes into overtime. And then we're going to go to a little Spanish play-by-play by our guy, Ricky Ricardo, who did have the Jake Elliott game-winning 54-yard field goal in overtime. Eagles win 34-31. You hear both those calls right now.
2nd and goal from the 10. Snap to Howell. Surveying. Throws to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown! Touchdown, Washington! Jahan Dotson! Unbelievable!
My goodness!
Elliott. Le mete el pie. Distancia, dirección. ¡Sí, señor! ¡Sí, señor! ¡Sí, señor! ¡Sí, señor! ¡Sí, señor! ¡Sí, señor! Elliott para la victoria. Jake Elliott, el pequeño gigante de los Eagles, con el pie mago derecho.
How about that? Sí, señor, by Ricky Ricardo for the Jake Elliott game-winning field goal. Alrighty, next stop. Chargers and Raiders. The Chargers win 24-17. Brandon Staley could wipe the sweat off of his face because he had another idiotic decision, gambling, going for it on 4th and 1, up by 7 in the game at his own 34-yard line. Thankfully for Staley, well, Josh McDaniels is on the other sideline. They get the ball all the way down to the 3 of the Raiders, looking to tie the game, and Aiden O'Connell had the interception. But the big story in this one, Khalil Mack, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 sacks in the game. Let's listen up to Khalil Mack's 6th sack of the game. This is on the Chargers Radio Network.
O'Connell looking in the middle of the field, hit, and he is dropped, sacked. Who do you think it was? Unbelievable. The 6th sack for Khalil Mack, a new Chargers record, a loss of 10, a new individual record for Khalil Mack in a single game.
6 sacks, 10 tackles, 1 pass defended for Khalil Mack. What a monster day. Aiden O'Connell in for the injured Jimmy Garoppolo. 238 yards, no touchdowns, a pick, 2 lost fumbles, and 1 rushing TD. Josh Jacobs, why are the Raiders not using him? He only had 58 yards rushing in the game and 1 touchdown, but he also had 81 receiving yards, and still Josh McDaniels said, yep, we're not going to give him the ball. 1st and goal all the way down at the 3. Cowboys blow out the Patriots 38-3. This one was disgusting. Mac Jones was pulled from the game, 150 yards, 2 interceptions. Bailey Zappi did come in, 4 of 9 for 57 yards in the contest. Ezekiel Elliott in his return to Dallas, 6 carries for 16 yards. Dak Prescott, nice performance, 261 yards and a touchdown. Micah Parsons had 2 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. But let's hear Deron Bland with a incredible interception. It was a terrible throw by Mac Jones across his body on the run, but he did take it for 54 yards to the house. This made it 28-3 as the Cowboys crush the Patriots.
2nd and 10. Jones is back. Plenty of time. Rolls right. Bottled up. Throws back to the edge. Intercepted. Deron Bland. Call the house. Hello, house. House, it's me, Deron. Hello, house. Touchdown for Deron Bland.
Well, the farthest thing from a Bland play for the Cowboys defense, they beat the Patriots 38-3. 2 more games to go. My pick for Offensive Player of the Year this season, Run CMC, Christian McCaffrey. 49ers beat the Cardinals 35-16. Another gritty effort for the Cardinals early, even if it's not reflected by the final score, as Joshua Dobbs had 265 yards in the game and 2 touchdowns. But the story was Christian McCaffrey, 3 rushing touchdowns, 106 yards rushing, and then 71 yards receiving, 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown. Let's listen up to the Brock Purdy pass to McCaffrey for the 6-yard score. This was his 3rd of the game. This made it 21-3. Here is the 49ers Radio Network.
2nd and goal, 6-yard line. Bunch formation right. Play action by Purdy. Looks bunch side. Comes back left. Throws. McCaffrey will roll it right down to the goal line. Touchdown! CMC! The hat trick for Christian McCaffrey.
And then finally, we go to MetLife Stadium, where it was a who's who's of celebrities for the big quarterback matchup between Patrick Mahomes and Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson may have thought that Taylor Swift was a single older mother with the way that he was playing, if you know the history of Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, 72% completion percentage, 245 yards, did have 2 passing touchdowns, maybe the best game of his pro career. But the story was the Chiefs winning the game, Taylor Swift being in the building, seeing her new man, Travis Kelce. Travis, let's pick it up a little bit. Only 6 catches for 60 yards. Mahomes, though, didn't have his best game. 203 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, but had the big first down run late in the game to seal it, where he did go down at the 2-yard line. And Isaiah Pacheco, welcome back to your home state of New Jersey. 115 yards rushing, 43 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Here is the Mahomes to Noah Gray TD pass. This was the 200th touchdown pass already, wow, of Patrick Mahomes' career. This made it 17-0 Chiefs.
Mahomes calls an audible, raises the right leg. Chiefs leading 10-0. Mahomes pumps once, twice. Open right side, Noah Gray. 10 to the 5, stretching out. Touchdown! Kansas City for Patrick Mahomes. 200 touchdown passes in 84 games of his career. That's an all-time National Football League record, eclipsing the mark set by the great Dan Marino.
Now, I don't usually love to complain about officiating, but I'll open this up to wrap up No Huddle Offense to Michael Samter. You are a tortured, long-suffering Jets fan, Samter.
Was.
What, you gave up on the team?
Yeah, I gave up 4 plays into this season.
Wait, so who do you root for then on Sundays?
Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, that's so lame.
You know what? I've been tortured and suffered long enough as a Jets fan that I'm now picking a team that I know is going to win. I've suffered enough. I'm not picking a team
that's lame.
That's going to make me suffer more.
You know, I kind of want to play like whack-a-mole with you and just whack you as you be the mole because
It's
that's
not
dumb.
worth
You can't
the
give up
heart
on your
trouble
team.
to go through what the Jets put me through on a day-to-day, year-to-year basis.
So last night you were rooting for the Chiefs.
Last night I was rooting for the Chiefs.
That's just disgraceful. It really is.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with the Jets.
So did you think it was a good call then at the end of the game on that holding that they called up against Sauce Gardner?
Not only was it not a good call,
Thank you.
but
it was late,
the
too.
fact that the ref waited until he caught the interception, it's almost as if Michael Carter hadn't caught that ball, that they wouldn't have called the pass interference, and then it just would have been 4th and 20, right? So the fact that he picked it off is why he called the pass interference. It made no sense to me. However, it did feel like a makeup in a sense because there was a very iffy holding call a few plays before that sent the Chiefs back. It was a completed pass to Travis Kelce down inside the 10-yard line, and they called a holding call, which is kind of an iffy holding call that didn't have to get called. And then the holding call on Sauce Gardner on defense kind of felt like a makeup call.
You are 100% right because that was my first reaction. It was a late, and I mean a late flag. It's almost as if in basketball, you go up for the shot, they wait to see if the basket did go in, and if it didn't go in, then they'll call the foul. If it did go in, they'll be like, oh, we'll let it play. I thought it was so ticky-tacky, and it's something that should not have been called, especially with the way that they were letting everyone play in that game. Now, it's not the reason why the Jets lost the game, but it's a bad look for the officials, and it's a bad job. And if I'm a Jet fan, which I'm not, and I know you still are, even though you claim not to be, I would be irate today. Absolutely irate.
The other part of it also is, listen, the Jets defense at times, they look incredible, right? They haven't, I think it's 22 straight games. They haven't allowed a 300-yard passer. Mahomes
Slow first start, though.
barely had 200 yards. Yeah. And they look great at times. But against the Bills, when they had to shut the Bills down in that week 1 win, where they kind of got lucky in overtime, they couldn't stop the Bills when it mattered to stop them from getting the game-tying play at the end. Here, same thing. All they had to do on 3rd and 22 was get off the field. Patrick Mahomes runs for 25 yards. 3rd and 20, alleged holding call. The Jets could not get off the field on defense. That was a 6-minute drive, 7-minute drive that
It
the
is
Chiefs
Mahomes.
just ran the clock out. The Jets could not get off the field. If your defense is supposed to be historic, like DJ Reed said they were going to be.
85 Bears.
Like the 85 Bears or the Legion of Boom Seahawks, you have to get off the field. They could not get off the field. They lost that game not because of bad calls. They lost the game because the defense couldn't do their job.
But seems like you are upset with it because you're still a Jet fan. You may say that
No,
you're
I'm
not.
a football
but
fan.
you
I have
are.
no idea. There's no passion there. There's no anger there.
2 of my friends that are Jet fans, one is now a Bills fan. The other is now an Eagles fan. And I consider you a friend. And now Santa's going to say that he roots for the Kansas City Chiefs. So you guys all know how to jump on the great bandwagons. Okay, we'll take a break. That was your Huddle Offense right here on CBS Sports Radio. We'll come on back. Is Caleb Williams going to say thanks but no thanks to the Chicago Bears? We'll discuss next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Chris calling in Florida next up on CBS Sports Radio. Chris, what's happening?
Zach, what's happening? I love your show tremendously. It is the best national show around. I love my local shows, but you are the best.
Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports, or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. All righty, some breaking news here. This is from Rap Sheet, Ian Rappaport. Steelers quarterback Kenny Pickett suffered a bone bruise in his knee that could lead to a short-term absence, per Rappaport and Mike Garafolo. The door is open for Pickett, who also has a muscle strain, to play this week, but the team may be smart with a Week 6 bye. I understand that you avoided this being a big-time injury, and I would probably assume, and you know what happens when you assume, but I would assume right now that Kenny Pickett is not playing this week. I could understand why he would probably want to play. You're going up against the Baltimore Ravens. This is at, Acrisure Stadium now, whatever they call it. I always still say that it's Heinz Field. But you have a big game this week with a team that's 2-2 up against the Baltimore Ravens team that's done a nice job to start off the season. If I'm the Steelers, though, I can't play Pickett this week. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. You got to be careful here, and you got to be cautious here, especially when you're in the second year of having a young quarterback. I would not want to play a quarterback here, and it's one thing to not be 100%, but with the percentage of health not looking like it's in a good situation, I think the Steelers are smart here. I think they will be prudent here. Rest Pickett this week, then they have the bye week, and then you would hope coming out of the bye week on October 22nd, you could get him back against the LA Rams, and even if it comes at the expense of your team losing the game, you're 2-3, you could still find the way to come back from being 2-3. So that's the latest there with Kenny Pickett. Before the year, I think if we did a poll on who would be the number one overall pick in the draft, it would be Caleb Williams. We all know that. But what team would be the number one overall pick? And everyone would have said it's the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals really feel like, to me, that they are the Miami Dolphins of 2019, where everyone said, oh, the Dolphins are going to be horrible. Oh, the Dolphins are going to tank for Tua. Now, ironically, they ended up getting Tua Tagovailoa, but they didn't get the number one overall pick. They fell to the 5th overall pick. I'm not ready to say the Cardinals are this great team. I'm not even ready to say they're a good team. But the Cardinals already have one win where they did a very nice job against the Dallas Cowboys. They were in the 2 other games where they were in control of the Giants game and they couldn't find a way to get the job done. And then week 1, they blew that game up against the Commanders. So I got to give credit to Mr. Boop, 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 and their head coach and Jonathan Gannon with all the crazy sound effects that their team is responding to him. And I've seen enough already to say that the Cardinals aren't getting the number one pick. Now, you could say, Zach, what about the other pick that they had? And that's the Houston Texans pick, which they got in the Will Anderson trade. I've seen enough from the Texans already at 2 wins to tell me that they're not going to be the number one overall pick either. But it's funny how we had this conversation about the Cardinals, where they could get Caleb Williams and then Marvin Harrison Jr. 1-2, and there's still a very good chance that there's going to be a team that gets both Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr., but it's not going to be the Arizona Cardinals, and it's going to be the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears, I know Justin Fields put a good game yesterday, but just like what I said about Zach Wilson, I think there's more talent with Fields than Wilson. I'm not going to change my entire view of what I think is going to happen long-term there based off one game. Like any Jet fan that is now drinking the Kool-Aid today saying, oh, Zach is back. Here comes Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's going to be good the rest of the year. Can we see some consistency? And I know Justin Fields basically said that he's going to stop thinking and think less here, and he's just going to sling it. And he played, for the most part, a really damn good game. But with the game on the line, he throws the interception. You had the collapse. I think they were up like, what do I said earlier, 28-7, whatever it was, and you lose the game 31-28 with 24 unanswered points being scored. There's many areas that you could point to blame, but I don't really believe that Matt Eberflus is going to be back next year. I don't know if Ryan Poles is going to be back, but the Chicago Bears are going to have the number one overall pick because of their own incompetence, and that's the least intimidating team in football right now when you see the way that they've played through the first 4 games. And then also remember, because they traded back in the draft when they originally had the number one overall pick a year ago, and the Panthers move up to the 1 spot to get Bryce Young, they also had the Panthers pick. And the Panthers haven't won a game yet. And I don't know when the Panthers are going to win a game. Because you have Bryce Young as your quarterback. I know he hasn't been all that, but what do you have around him? You have an overrated running back in Miles Sanders. You have a garbage offensive line right now, and you have no wide receivers. You don't have any receivers that intimidate you, and you feel as if to take a Randy Moss line, they could take the top off the defense in the year of 2023. So I view the Bears as a team that, yes, the Bears stink, but the Bears have a golden opportunity where you're going to most likely get the 1st and 2nd pick in the draft, or at worst case, you're going to have 2 picks in the top 5. And I think they'll take Caleb Williams, and I also believe, I would think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the player that they take, but if there's a nice defensive player that they want out there, if they want the offensive lineman from Penn State, maybe you go about it this way. But this Bears team, they're probably going to have a new coach next year. They're going to have a new quarterback, and they're going to have another top 5 pick in the NFL draft because the Panthers are going nowhere this year. But it does raise the question, is Caleb Williams going to say, I'll go back to USC for another season? Or will Caleb Williams say, I'm not going to go to the Chicago Bears and try to avoid the Bears at all costs and kind of pull what the Manning family did with Eli when the Chargers drafted him and it was clear that he was never going to play for them, and eventually they get Phillip Rivers and a bunch else, And Eli Manning found his way to New York, and he goes on to win 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. Here's what I'll say. I think it's very easy to just float that idea out there. Oh, NIL. He doesn't have to go play in the NFL. Oh, he could try to force his way to another team. I think it's easy to say that, but it's very tough to follow through with that. And we've seen it before happen. And Caleb Williams, from all things that I could see, and when I watch college football, he looks like he's going to be a star. We all got to see what he did last year at USC. We got to see what he did the year before at Oklahoma after replacing Spencer Rattler. And he's confident. He should be confident when you're that good, right? We played the clip earlier of me talking with him at the Heisman Trophy last year. And he says there's not anything that he sees that Patrick Mahomes does that he can't do. But when you look at the Bears, I understand that where it does feel like quarterbacks go to die because they've never had a franchise quarterback and they've never had a 4,000-yard passer in team history. But I just don't buy any of this nonsense that Caleb Williams is going to return to USC. Caleb Williams is going to try to avoid the Bears, just like how what Coach Prime said 2 weeks ago. Oh, Shador's going to come back. He's not number 2 to anybody. And right now, Caleb Williams, you guys already said he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. I know that Shador Sanders, right, money out the wazoo because of who his father is, and then also with his own NIL money. And you see the car that Shador Sanders drives. And I think Shador Sanders is going to be a really good pro quarterback. But when you are going to be the second or third quarterback taken in the draft, I have a tough time believing that Shador Sanders, even though his old man is the coach, and maybe that is incentive to return because that's a special opportunity and a special thing with the bond that you have with your dad. But I always operate under the belief that if a quarterback is good enough to be a top 5 or top 10 pick in the NFL draft, I don't think you roll the dice. I don't think you play the game and go, oh, let me go back to USC or let me go back to Colorado. Because even if an injury did occur, they'd still be a top 5, top 10 pick. But that opportunity is guaranteed to you right now. And I don't think you bypass that opportunity, whether it's returning to college or saying, if I don't like the team that I'm going to get drafted by, then I'm not going to go there and I'm not going to play. It's easier said than done. And I know, right, a lot of talk show hosts throw it out there, but it takes a lot to try to avoid a situation like that. And ultimately, I do believe playing for the Bears next year is going to be Caleb Williams, and he'll probably have Marvin Harrison Jr. with him and a new head football coach in Chicago, too. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. When we come on back, who has more pressure on them tonight in the Monday Night Football game? Is it Daniel Jones or is it Geno Smith? I will give you that answer on the other side. Also give you a pick and a thought on the game. But first up with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the Giants and Seahawks will close out Week 4 tonight in New Jersey, and the Giants surpassed expectations in Brian Dable's first year, winning a playoff game, but it hasn't been smooth sailing so far at 1-2 this year. With the Dolphins and Bills around the corner on their schedule, quarterback Daniel Jones said there's definitely some urgency tonight.
I think it's a big game for us, without a doubt. It's a big game, and we're excited for the opportunity. So we're going to do what we always do and prepare and get ready to go. But we're excited to get out there.
Left tackle Andrew Thomas is out. Running back Saquon Barkley is doubtful. The Seahawks have won back-to-back games and are 5-0 at MetLife Stadium. MRI has confirmed the injury to the Bills' Tre'Davious White. He is out for the year with a torn Achilles. Jonathan Taylor could see his first action of the year on Sunday. He's scheduled to come off the PUP list this week and could be back at practice as soon as Wednesday. Despite the Falcons' struggles, head coach Arthur Smith is sticking with Desmond Ridder, saying he will remain the starting quarterback. The Brewers' Brendan Woodruff sidelined for the wild card round and perhaps more with a shoulder injury. The Spurs have reportedly signed Devin Vassell to a 5-year extension worth $146 million. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio is everywhere, at home, in your car, and of course on your phone and tablet. Find us on your local affiliate, SiriusXM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Rock your body. this is Howie.
And this is Nick
From the
Backstreet Boys, and you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, it's time to answer our Ask the Pros question of the day, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Ryan in Des Moines, Iowa. How about that? I was in Des Moines this past weekend, was listening to our great CBS Sports Radio affiliate, 1700 The Champ, while driving through the state of Iowa. Says, who has more pressure on them tonight? Is it Daniel Jones or is it Geno Smith? You could submit an Ask the Pros question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I actually think the player with more pressure under him tonight, when you consider Daniel Jones going up against Geno Smith, it's actually Daniel Jones. And here's why. Geno Smith should win the game tonight. Geno Smith has more weapons on the offensive side of the ball. So you may be sitting there saying, Zach, whoa, there's more pressure on Geno Smith if you think he's in a better situation. I think, though, most people now realize what Geno Smith is. Where he was lost, right? Everyone wrote him off. He'll tell you he didn't write back. That was a great line after week 1 last year where he did take down the Denver Broncos. But going into this year, I don't think a lot of people doubted Geno Smith. Where what I mean by that is we expect some regression, but not for him to fall flat on his face. When it comes to Daniel Jones, it was so negative and it was so nasty from the start, where even last year, and he had a really good season with the rushing yards, and I know his passing numbers weren't great, but he had no one to really throw the ball to. But for Daniel Jones, where he was drafted, and everyone thought, including myself, that it was a horrible draft pick, and he turned out to be an okay quarterback. I still don't know what his ceiling is. I still think there's more doubt with Daniel Jones compared to Geno Smith. So for tonight, I think this is a moment where Daniel Jones, in an isolated window on Monday Night Football, can show everyone last year wasn't a one-time thing. Last year wasn't a one-time lucky kind of situation that ended up happening, where you got to give him a lot of credit for what he did with like Isaiah Hodgins as his best wide receiver. So I look at this game tonight, and I think because more people doubt Daniel Jones compared to Geno Smith in the year of 2023, that's why I do believe that the Giants and their quarterback has more pressure than the Seahawks quarterback in Geno Smith. Now, as for the game tonight, Seahawks are a 2.5-point favorite. The Seahawks last year did a really good number on the New York Giants. And with all the injuries that the Giants have, it feels like, right, and my antenna's up on this one, that the Seahawks should be more than a 2.5-point favorite. And even though internally, there's like a part of me saying, take the Giants, take the Giants, take the Giants, right? Don't love where the spread's at. A lot of people are going to take the Seahawks tonight. Maybe Vegas is going to get me tonight. And Vegas usually does get me. I like the Seahawks in the game tonight, and I think the Seahawks are going to win, and they're going to cover the spread. The Seahawks just have too much talent compared to this Giants team. And the Giants, I said this going into the year, and I thought Seattle could be the third best team in the NFC. It doesn't look like they're going to be, but the Seahawks should be a playoff team. And the Cowboys, I would say, are the third best team in the NFC behind the Eagles and the 49ers right now in that order. But you look at this Giants team, coaching can only take you so far. And you need a good coach. You need a good culture. And the Giants finally got that last year. But you need more talent. And I know Darren Waller gets injured a lot. Saquon, right, injured a lot, as you've seen last week and then this week. And it's just one of those things where you could only go so far if you don't have the talent. And for the Giants last year, this was a football team that got all the way to the second round of the playoffs. Like, if you would have told me before the start of last season that the Giants would be in the playoffs, I would have said you're crazy. But then if you would have told me that the Giants would have not only made the playoffs, but won a playoff game, I would have said, what are you smoking? I really would have said that. That's inconceivable. But now when you look at that team, especially with the injuries on the offensive line, Saquon as well, still not having great wide receivers in there, let's see what Hyatt could do. A lot of pressure on Jalen Hyatt tonight. I may bet him anytime touchdown in the game because I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I just believe that the Seahawks are in better position right now to win this football game. So let me go around the room here. Stu, let me get your thoughts on the game tonight as the Seahawks are 2.5-point favorites up against the Giants.
Yeah, it feels like the Seahawks are just a better team than the Giants. I think Geno Smith is a better quarterback. They have more playmakers. And, usually you see a West Coast team come into the East Coast, and it's like, they play an early game. But the fact that this is a primetime game, a standalone game, I don't think that really affects them. They have some more rest to play on the Monday night. So I think the Seahawks win this one pretty comfortably, actually.
Samter, I know you're a natural contrarian. I feel like this means you're picking the Giants.
No, I would never pick the Giants. I think the Giants were so overrated last year, and that the expectations going into this year were so ridiculous.
But were they really? Like, did people have high expectations for the Giants this year?
People were calling them a playoff team. I thought the Giants...
Well, that's not crazy. They made the playoffs last year and won a playoff game.
And my point is that they were incredibly huge overachievers last year that made something out of literally nothing, and they did nothing to improve their team whatsoever other than adding Darren Waller, who's always hurt. So even having him on your roster doesn't actually mean he's on your team because he's never there. They've done nothing. They don't really have anything to go by. I don't buy Saquon Barkley as an elite running back. Daniel Jones is...
Wait. What do you mean you don't buy Saquon Barkley? He can't stay healthy. That's a problem. But when he is healthy, the guy's a dominant running back.
He's fine. He's fine.
He's fine.
He's fine.
Just fine.
He's a make or break guy. He's going to get you 9 carries with no yards, and he's going to break one for 40. That's just what he does. That's what he's always going to do, right? And that's fine to get that 25-yard run. But when you're at 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, every single drive, you're just not going to win ball games. So I've never been a believer in Saquon Barkley. He doesn't see the hole well. Daniel Jones is nothing. Zach Wilson is as good, maybe not. But
man, you're really negative.
I have no faith in the Giants whatsoever. I love Daboll. I think Daboll is a great coach who got everything possible out of that team. But they were such overachievers last year, and every year we see a team or two that catches lightning in the bottle and does not belong where they are. Whether they just have a terrible year or a great year, they just don't belong. And the Giants just didn't belong. There's not a lot of talent on that team other than the offensive line, and their offensive line best player is hurt. I have no faith in the Giants. They're going to get crushed by 30.
Wow. So, folks, let me just give you a little rule of thumb here. This is what happens on all sports talk shows. Whenever every single person on the show picks one team, you fade the crap out of us. There is no doubt about it now that the Giants are going to win the game. I just picked Seattle. Stu just picked Seattle. Samter just picked Seattle. And Samter was the most defiant about the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, winning this game. Like, I look at the Giants, and I said I thought the Giants are going to regress this year. But Samter makes it seem as if they're going to fall flat on their face and they're going to be like kissing the floor all throughout the season. I think the best way to describe what the Giants will be this year is what the Commanders were last year is what the Giants will be this year. And the Giants and the Commanders will swap places with the Giants this year. Like the Commanders were right there and they just missed out on the playoffs. I think the Giants will be right there and they'll just miss out on the playoffs. And I do believe the Commanders will go to the postseason this year. But geez, that was really depressing what Samter just painted the picture here. You would make it seem as if if the Giants are the Bears, for crying out loud, with no hope, no future.
They're not the Bears yet, but the Bears have hope and future because they're going to get the first 2 picks in the draft.
You would hope so, but with all that being said, how many times have we been down this road before with the Bears, where the Bears have a future, the Bears have a hope, and then the next thing you know, the Bears are where the Bears always were. And that's not a good football team outside of, one of the greatest seasons that you'll ever see back in 1985. So one more thing that I want to get to before we wrap up the show today. Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio. All the Taylor Swift coverage from yesterday. I meant to bring this up earlier. I mentioned it for a second. Now we got to spend the final 3-4 minutes on it. As a consumer, I think it's a little bit too much now. And I know this is going to be a wildly unpopular opinion, and I don't want to start any wars with the Swifties. I like Taylor Swift. I have no issue with Taylor Swift. I get it why NBC wants to show Taylor Swift 3,000 times last night in the game. We don't need to see her 3,000 times. I thought it was a bit too much last night, and I thought it was cool before the game, right? You see her walking into the stadium with all the other celebrities. The fans that are standing outside of her apartment Like, what do you think? She's going to walk out of her apartment. You're going to be like, Taylor! She's going to be like, hey, guys, how you doing? And walk right into an SUV and then get escorted to the stadium. But last night, and I do believe that is a genuine relationship with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if there's going to be wedding bells that are going to be rung and heard soon. But last night, right away, the promotion of the Taylor Swift movie of her Eras Tour that's coming out. Travis Kelce now popping up in a lot more commercials. I look back at that entire thing and just what happened last night as a consumer of football. And I like the other things as well. It was just overdone. Like, you could make mention of it. You could show her a few times throughout the games, but they must have showed her at least 20 times in the game last night. Samter, let me just quickly throw this out to you. Do you think that was just a little bit too much last night? Because that's the way that I felt about it during the game.
It almost felt like some of the other games, they kind of like flashed to her quickly and then would mention it. And that was, 2 weeks ago in KC.
Yeah.
They mentioned it. They flashed to her once.
Well, they went to her a lot. The game also sucked. This was a good game tonight, last night.
And it was like break after break after break. Like every single moment you saw, it was definitely way too much Taylor Swift.
Stu, I know you're a big Swiftie. You spent like your entire life savings on going to Taylor Swift this year.
Basically.
What did you think of the coverage last night?
I didn't mind it. I was kind of entertained by it. I think they were preparing for a blowout, and it wasn't a blowout, so they were kind of surprised that it wasn't a blowout. So maybe they should have deviated from that, but
that's why you have to adapt.
Yeah.
Don't be like Matt Canada and fail to adapt here. You have to realize that's a good game. I don't need to see Taylor Swift 4,000 times when I was watching the game on a plane, too. But, man, what a spectacle that was. And Brittany Mahomes, she's sitting right next to Taylor Swift. No one realized it was Brittany Mahomes as well until I saw all the pictures of her not looking too happy during the game, and that's because it wasn't going the way that usually the games do go for the Kansas City Chiefs. But the biggest winner of all this is Donna Kelce. Donna Kelce with Jake from State Farm, tremendous yesterday, and then right to the Chiefs game where she's sitting with the new BFF and maybe her daughter-in-law in Taylor Swift. Donna Kelce stock all the way up, all the way through the roof. All righty, that concludes this Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show. We'll be back tomorrow on all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and, of course, with all the passionate people that are in the YouTube chat. We always appreciate you listening and watching us right here on CBS Sports Radio. Big thanks to Stuart Kovacs. Big thanks to Michael Samter as well. We'll be back tomorrow. Going to have a fun show. And, yes, I do like the Seahawks in the game tonight, minus the 2.5 points. So does Stu, so does Samter. So expect to talk about a big Giants victory tomorrow. All right, everybody. We out. Bye-bye.